Welcome to Tell the Story, a podcast that redefines what it means to thrive after a life of service. I'm Doug White, a veteran, retired first responder, and the author of Hiding in Plain Sight, the truth about trauma, service, and the way forward. This isn't just another podcast about service. It's about what comes next, how veterans, first responders, and their families move beyond the challenges, own their journeys, and build a future of strength, purpose, and growth. This is a movement. It's a space to connect through unscripted conversations where we bring you hard-earned lessons, actionable strategies, and inspire you to do the hard work so you can show up as the best version of yourself for your family, for your community, and for your mission. Through Tell This Story, I sit down with those who have been there, veterans, first responders, their families, and thought leaders, engaging in real, raw conversations about resilience, leadership, mental fitness, and navigating the transition life throws at us. It's not about trauma. It's about what comes next. This is a conversation that matters, and this is a conversation that can save lives. Tell This Story is proudly brought to you by Polestar Coffee, fueling the brave with the finest blends, crafted for those and by those who push boundaries every day. Check them out at polestarcoffee.com. Before we dive in, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a 5-star review wherever you're listening. Your support helps us grow and bring these powerful messages to those people who need them the most. The silence around our experiences in service can be deafening, but conversations like this help break the cycle. My guest today knows service, leadership, and resilience firsthand. He's walked the walk as an infantry officer, attorney, public affairs officer for a major law enforcement agency, and now as a Florida state representative. From 10,000 feet to crime scenes, from natural disasters to the legislature, he spent a career advocating for veterans, first responders, and their families. He's a fierce champion for his district, first responder and veteran well-being, and those who dedicate their lives to service. It's an honor to welcome to Tell This Story, my friend, Representative Danny Alvarez. I was going to start talking when you were sipping your coffee, so you had to pause. I was going to wait just in time.
Go ahead.
Danny, how are you doing today, buddy? You've had a busy day, man.
I'm excited to be here. More than you know, seeing as how I've seen the evolution of Doug White from badass cop to badass podcaster. This is awesome.
Great. Yeah, it's funny you say that. You met me right after my shaved head crazy phase. I'd already started growing my hair out and becoming a policy man by the time we met.
You were very debonair. I was like,
yes. Yeah, it was. Yes. So, before I get into you, I want to call out a couple of things. One, you wore your nice T-shirt for our interview today, and it's Valentine's Day. This is going to post at the end of the month, but
for you.
I'm a little upset that it's not a red shirt. Your face is red, though, and I'm going to make it a little more red as we continue. But so years ago, I was a sergeant in Homeland Security Division, and you were our new public affairs officer. And we worked together on a bunch of outreach things, construction fraud, all kinds of stuff. But it cracked me up because you were like in super fantastic shape. Not that you're in bad shape now, even though Gino would have something to say about that.
You don't know nothing about shape other than round.
So you were always working out in the gym at the office, and I would miss you from time to time, but I would be in there and I'd see you in there, and you started your social media campaign with your workout buddies, the morning workout crew, the brochachos. I know you remember it because I keep reminding you of the brochachos. I'm going to take a sip of my coffee for effect.
Thank you so much. Did you say the brochachos?
The brochachos. Yes. Yeah, you're pretty ridiculous. But so anyway, you kept posting the workout stuff, and I was like, man, Danny's trying to one-up me. I got to stay in shape. He's calling me out. This is a competition. You didn't do that for that purpose, but in my mind, that's what it was. The gauntlet was thrown every day. And every time I saw your pictures, I'd get wound up. So I started taking pictures of my watch face at like 4:30 in the morning to go out for my runs.
I remember. That's
right. So
I
was doing the old Jocko thing, motivating people.
That's right.
So I remember one day, I did a triathlon out of Tarpon Springs and took the podium and all that stuff. And there was a finish line photo, and Michelle and I were leaving the beach. And I said, I'm going to get Danny. It's 8:10. I've already got a triathlon under my belt, took the podium. What's up? Like, what are you doing on Saturday morning, bro? You getting salty and sandy yet?
Here we go.
So I sent you that post of my finish line. I was like, got him. And like 30 seconds later, I get a notification that the sheriff's office page that you were in charge of had a post.
Boy.
And you posted a picture of me in an all spandex tri-suit gritting, working to get to the finish line. And he posted, some garbage about, here's Lieutenant White doing this. And, what are you doing? This is the caliber of people we got. And I started getting cat calls and all kinds of silliness off of that. And I thought it was going to be done then and there. I was like, man, Danny got me. Michelle was laughing at me all the way home. She goes, well, you threw it out. He got you. I'm like, yeah, he got me. I forgot. Well, no, dude, it was just for you. I forgot that you had a platform. I was like, damn, he got me. So get to work on Monday. And it didn't stop there because, in all the districts and the SOC and all that stuff, we've got the large screen TVs with their social media rolling on it. And every 5 minutes, 49-inch picture of me in all spandex was playing across the TV there and all the district TVs. And the ladies in admin thought it was fantastic. Nobody would let me live it down. And for months, that stayed on the District 3 rolling television.
All I'm saying is I didn't tell you to put on spandex and run around on your Saturday, but you told me that you did. So let's just tell the world how proud of old Doug we are. I remember that.
You got me, bro. I was like, oh, all right.
And
good. It seemed to me that, you were on Behind the Shield a couple of weeks ago with James Gearing. Great episode, by the way. He's a good dude and doing a lot of solid work, man, as are you. But you mentioned at the end of the podcast that I was out catching bad guys and all this other stuff. Well, I think that it was actually the time you came to visit me, and a picture I posted of you and I in the office with me making fun of my hairstyling. It was that night that I went out there and got in a car chase and a foot chase, went over a wall and rolled my ankle.
That's right.
Still caught the bad guy.
Yeah, you still caught the bad guy.
So I was like, no running or anything with my foot in a soft cast, light duty and all that stuff. And it just seemed to me that there was an uptick in your workout videos and your workout posts with the brochachos. And I'm like, Danny knows I'm broken and can't do nothing. Now he's just punishing me.
Listen, so the truth is that's just not true.
I know it's not true, but in my mind, I was like, okay, he's taking advantage of the situation.
You would take us to the woodshed, bro. Like here I am, I'm all freaking buff and I'm working hard and I'm like trying to be this old guy that still goes to the gym. And then I would be like, oh, I benched something. And I'm like, Doug literally like did an Ironman while I'm thinking I'm hardcore. This dude is like blowing lungs out. Listen, you were a stud. You always have been a stud.
Oh, no.
I just think the only person that didn't think you were a stud was you, which is why I love you. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, I'm direct compliments and highlighting me embarrass me. It makes me really, really awkward. So now for some reason or another, I'm situating stuff on my desk because I don't know what to do with my hands. Thanks, bro. Appreciate you.
You're welcome.
I'm going to return the favor here in a few minutes.
Okay.
Anyway, man, I gave this glorious review and bio of who you were. Man, you have worn so many hats, bro. You have done it from business, politics, stuff that you've never done before. And just, it's like you do a clinic. Every time you do something, it's like, I don't know how to do that, but we're going to learn it real quick and you're going to do it and do it well. Where does that come from, man? Your childhood, how your family came here and all this other stuff, dude, that's all amazing. But I want to dial into who is Danny? What makes you you?
You know, Doug, I think it's only been like in the last couple of years that I think I realized I'm going to die poor. And because poor financially, right? I feel like I could be great at making money. And I will get to the answer. This is all part of the answer. I think I probably could be great at making money if I took this same attitude and like said, well, I can do what you said. We'll figure it out. We'll go be an investor. None of that fills my tank. It just doesn't. So the typical push-pull of a kid in modern America is go to high school, go to college, get a successful job, get a title, get married, have kids, rinse, repeat, start the cycle. And to me, I always was enthralled by the romance of men that made a difference. I'm not saying I looked up to Hemingway, but when you look at like Hemingway's life, right? The dude was a writer. He fought in World War I. He did this. He was on a boat. He was rich. He was poor. There's this circle of life that he lived. And so somewhere in this pathway, I just said to myself, And I remember it was very purposeful. It was very purposeful. I said to myself, I will look at my children and say, I made a difference and I lived my life. I will turn to them and say, I lived a life that you would be proud of, son. You know what I mean? And I want them to be better than me. You know, like I don't want them to take care of me when I'm older. So clearly I'm still working to make sure that I'll take care of myself on the back end. But I want to have the richness of experience because we only have one chance at doing this. We only have one chance. And too often it's not, we defeat ourselves, but it's not that you are doing it just to yourself. The outside pressures of life are telling you, go get a job, go be a lawyer. And you're a piece of crap if you don't have a net worth of so-and-so by 50. I'm going to tell you something. I have a crap net worth, you know what I mean? Of money. You know, I have life to show for it. I've made a ton of money in my life. I've lost a ton of money in my life, but I have seen mountains in Korea and sunsets that no one else will see. You know what I mean? I have like dove underwater and seen things that no one have. I've skydived with pros. I've almost died with pros and everything in between. I've helped people that I can't remember that I helped. You know what I mean? And to me, do you know that's one of the most satisfying parts of life? Legitimately, it is. I've been in front of my son and someone walked up to us and go, Mr. Alvarez. And I said, oh, you know, yes, ma'am. And they're like, I know you clearly don't remember who I am, but you helped me. And because of you, my family is XYZ in America. And I'm like, and I'm more happy that they said it in front of my son than they said it to me, period. You know what I mean? Like, I want my son to like understand what the service to others means. You know what I mean? Like the money I made those years is gone. You know what I mean? But the memory and the life-changing attitude, I mean, that family has kids that are becoming Americans that are writing the American story now because of how we help them, according to her, which is phenomenal. I don't remember her, right? She could come back up to me again and say the same story. I'd be like, oh, I think I remember that story, because it's just not about that. My fulfillment, my paycheck in life is directly correlated to the amount of good that we can do when it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? The amount of good that we can do when nobody sees the good. You know what I mean? Like you just go around and so I recently got married, right? I recently got married. And the reason I know that I found the right one is because that woman saw that. You know what I mean? And she said that to me and I was like, holy crap. You notice that? And because it's always been my thing, you know what I mean? Like it's always been, no one understand it. I'm tired of explaining it. I just will live a life where no one will get it. You know what I mean? But for me, my fulfillment, my cup gets full when I have purpose, and whatever that purpose at the moment is, and it changes, you know what I mean? So if people say, what'd you do in life? I'd say I was a fixer. I fix problems. I fix things. You know, and then once that value proposition is done and I've fixed it to the point where I think it's on its way, then I go on to the next thing to fix. So I don't know if it's right or wrong. It's just the way that I am. And my brother thinks I'm stupid. You know, my brother, who has done extremely well, you know, he thinks I'm dumb. He thinks like I've wasted all my talents, because the dude makes, and God bless him, he makes a ton of money. He's extremely happy. I am extremely proud of what he's done. You know what I mean? And I show him off as if I had made all the money he's made. You know what I mean? But if he offered me that same position, I'd be like, I'm okay. Yeah, thanks, bro. You know, it's just not me. So I like the Renaissance aspect of life. And I think that because we have that one life to live, we waste it way too often, and we get caught, and just life catches us. And I don't want to get caught by life. So I think that's why we're here.
I agree with that, man. I think anybody, and I've known you for a long time, bro. And I think anybody who's ever met you for more than a minute can see where your heart is. Yeah. Yeah, man. That's a perfect description. And it shows in everything you do, and everything that I've ever seen you do. Nothing you've done I've ever seen is self-serving. Yeah. And speaking of your wedding, and a testament to who you are, I'll mention this at your wedding reception that I had to drive 7.5 hours to get to.
That you had to get your passport out for it.
I did, man. It was the south part of the county. I was like, bro, I hadn't been down here since I was the agricultural sergeant, and it was for a meeting in a field.
In a field.
So it's been a long time since I've been down to Fort Nowhere in the south part of the county.
Or lonesome.
Yeah, no, it was lonesome. And if Michelle hadn't been on the car with me, I probably would have been like, I don't know if we're still in Florida anymore. But
that's old Florida, bro. That is.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It was.
Yeah, I was like, bro, I didn't know this road ended. I know our range is back there 12 miles, but it ends here. That's crazy. So anyway, being out there and it was what a lovely reception. But, being surrounded by family and speaking about being wealthy because of your family and a relationship. I remember I had met Gino, your best childhood friend, a couple of weeks prior, and we come rolling up to the pasture and we park, and Michelle's like, "So we're going to know anybody?" I said, "I'm going to know Danny and Heather. I'm sure Gino's going to be there." So, and we know each other. So cool. So we come rolling up there and we see you and you turn around and you give me the spine straightening hugs that you always give. And they're fantastic, by the way. If anybody ever gets a chance to get a hug from Danny, it's wonderful. You save money on massages because he works out all the kinks in one hug. And so you start walking us around, introduce us to people. You introduce me or reintroduce me to my former boss and hero who I hadn't seen in years. That was awesome. But that was an awesome night for me, bro. But seeing Gino again, meeting his parents, sitting at the table and hearing how they met and their story, what wonderful people, man. Just speaking to everybody there and just watching your family interact with each other and your friends interact with each other. That whole place was just, bro, you could feel the love. I mentioned it to Michelle and I was like, this is something special, man. This is really something special because you don't see that. The whole world can end and everybody in here doesn't care because they've got each other. And it was just, it was just with the kids there, the families there, your friends there. I mean, dude, it was love. It was something special.
For me, it was perfect. Like,
so it was, you're a rich man.
I am. I'm extremely rich. We had gotten married. I said I'd never get married again. And then I fell head over heels with this woman. And she and I share this story all the time, where I went to go see her for our first date. And I said to myself, do not get out of the truck. Okay. Like the truck is on. I'm trying to will myself to stop me from turning off the truck and getting out because I knew that my life.
She's going to realize how short you are.
Thank God she's shorter. Okay. Thank God she's shorter. And so when we went to get married, when I finally got out of the truck, I had no chance. I literally had no chance. I probably would have married her that week. And so we went and got married with just our kids. Our kids were there. It was ultra special. And we realized, like, man, we really cut a lot of people out, who want to celebrate with us and they're happy. And so we did this party a year later, but we waited a full year to have the party. So, hey, by the way, someone might walk behind me because I'm in. So speak of the devil. Here she say, hi, babe. There you go. Welcome to your podcast, Doug. So,
it's awesome. I've got a sign on the outside of my door that says on air. So it's handwritten. And yeah, my son, he's not going to read anything. He'll just barge in probably asking for Chick-fil-A or some garbage. So anyway, man, before we go forward, we need to go backwards.
Yes, sir.
You're a smart guy, but you chose the Army. So
that was such a good one, bro. That was like a side hit. I like it.
First of all, I am known for my backhanded compliments.
You are.
Yeah. So
I'm not that smart.
Yeah, you are, man. Yeah, you got a law degree and stuff.
That means nothing. Have you met lawyers?
Yeah, I have.
Thank you. Moving on.
Moving on. So, you went in the Army. What made you decide Army over any of the other branches?
The truth is, we talked about already, this penchant to do things. You know what I mean? Like, I remember very, very clearly watching Top Gun and being like, holy crap. You know what I mean? That is like, I want to serve. But then your family tells you that's dumb. When I actually signed up for the Army, I had members of my family telling me I was stupid. Like, why would you waste your life? Okay. I'm like, think about what I'm saying, right? Yeah. So what do you do then? Then I'm like, oh, you think I'm stupid? Let's go infantry.
I'll show you.
So I had the typical, I'm an immigrant's son. My family came to America at gunpoint. And I've told that story before, but for me, holistically being American, I feel like I'm in 1776. I mean it. Like, I feel like when I'm coming up, my grandfather's talking about civil rights, individual rights, freedom. I mean, this was our kitchen table was like, we were fighting the revolution against Castro all the time, right? And we were thankful for America. This was born and bred into us. So, hey, Doug, you want to know something funny? And I don't say this that much, but do you remember when we kicked off Desert Storm? Remember
Yes.
I was somewhere around, I turned 18 in May. I'm in high school. I think that kicked off, if I remember the timing, that kicked off in that year. So I was only a couple months from being 18. I pulled my car over and was in panic that I would get drafted, right? Because that's how much of a freaking wuss I was, right? And I'm sitting there going, oh my God, what if they call me? What am I going to get drafted? Okay. So I'm just trying to tell you the evolution, right? And I remember like the shame of that later on, like, because only I knew that. So it's all in my head. Like, you could be a tough guy on the outside and nobody sees that, right? So fast forward. So I have all these mixed thoughts. I want to be a firebrand, and then I'm afraid, and then my family's telling me that's stupid. So I am at Loyola in New Orleans watching Somalia happen to the Ranger Battalions and the 10th Mountain. And the rage, and I mean it, Doug, the rage, when I watched that man get dragged down those streets, and I'm like, people like, what's wrong? I remember people came to my dorm room like, what are you yelling at? And I'm like, are you freaking looking at this? So then and there, I was born again hard. Then and there. I said, I don't know. I'm a soft guy. I just want you to know that I played lacrosse in high school. I was the guy. I wasn't that good. I was the guy that talked crap. And I loved hitting people, but I had zero skill. If you talk to my buddies, they're probably like, that dude sucked. And they're right. Okay. Just that they're right. I ended up being the captain of my lacrosse team at the University of Florida. Right. And it had nothing to do with my skill. It's just like people listened to me when I said it's time to run, or I'm going to whip your ass. You know what I mean? Like, we got to go. So I was the organizer in chief. I wasn't like the skill player in chief, but I loved it. And I loved the camaraderie. So then and there, I decide I'm going to go be a Navy SEAL. Okay. So Loyola and Tulane are like two campuses that are right next door. There is a fence in between them, and there's an agreement between Loyola and Tulane. Well, Loyola doesn't have, Tulane let those students go over there. So I actually played for the Tulane lacrosse team, and then I actually went over to Tulane ROTC, and I told the guy, I'm a Navy SEAL, and he laughed. And he goes, you know, you realize, and this was ROTC at the time. I had no idea what I was talking about, Doug. None. So I went over there and I talked to the guy, and he goes, okay, cool. We want you. We love the attitude. You have to take physics, calculus, this. And I was like, uh-oh. I am when I tell you that I'm a marginal student at best, okay? I said, no problem. Calculus, no problem. I remember saying these words and going, Jesus, how am I going to do this? So semester one, I failed calculus, okay? And I'm like, now I have an F on my, right? Semester two, I had 2 semesters to get my stuff ready, because then like the next semester, there's like schooling he was going to send me to, but if my grades weren't good and I didn't have the prerequisites, I couldn't go. So next semester, I have to take Calc 1, Calc 2, and physics. I actually passed Calc 1. Well, not passed. I got a D in Calc 1. I got an F in Calc 2, and I failed physics. I literally failed out of college. And I want you to understand this. I don't drink. Okay. I never drank. So I was in my fraternity and I survived. I just didn't survive Naval ROTC. I just want you to know that. I couldn't even get in. So my mom comes and picks me up and says, you had your chance. Let's go. We're going back to Florida. I tried to pull the old, I'm an adult now. You don't tell me what to do. And she had brought my grandmother in the car, and she goes, you want to tell your grandmother that? I like looked past her. I was like, I'll get my stuff.
Yeah, no.
So I get all my stuff. We go back, and but the fire's still there. So you know what I did? I said, screw it. I drove to a recruiter, and literally I had a bad taste in my mouth from the Navy, because I felt like that Navy guy could have probably guided me a little bit better. My responsibility. He didn't fail. I failed. So I went to the Army, guys, and I think I was too much of a wuss to go to the Marines. I should have gone to the Marines. I just want you to know that. I love the esprit de corps. I'm an infantry guy in the Army. The infantry to me is like the closest thing to what the Marines have. You know what I mean? Like they want to go through walls. They love their unit. They'll die for their unit. They're always a Marine. I love that. Okay. And so, but I didn't know what I was doing. So I signed up. He goes, oh, your ASVAB is really good. We have this job called 12 Bravo. I was like, does that blow stuff up? And he goes, oh, it blows everything up. It was combat engineer. I don't even know what that is. Okay. So, I signed up. It was a delayed entry program. I was supposed to go to basic training in May. This is like December. In the meantime, I've gotten into the University of Florida on a drug deal, legitimately, like people called in favors. I had a 1.6 GPA, bro. Okay. But it taught me a lesson. It taught me a lesson in being a good human, right? And being honest of heart in your intentions, people will look after you. So that is part and parcel why I look after other people that didn't ask me to, right? Because people took care of Danny Alvarez. So when I get to the University of Florida, I pass by the ROTC building and their major is out there doing something in uniform. And I was all proud with my backpack as I'm walking by. And I said, I'm going to be one of you guys in the summer. And he goes, oh, really? Why don't you be one of us now? And I said, what does that mean? He goes, well, I'll pay for your books and I'll give you a monthly stipend. And I was
Tell
like,
me more.
I literally was like, nobody told me that, right? So I said, well, I already signed up, so I think it's too late. He goes, I'll take care of that. Bro, he did take care of that, but he forgot to tell the unit that I belonged to in the reserves that I belong. So I get a call like mid-semester and it's like, this dude is hot. He goes, Private Alvarez, where the fuck are you? And I was like, first of all, what's a Private Alvarez? Like, I'm legit. I was like, who's that? Right? And he's like, that's you, god dang it. So he's like, you've been AWOL for 3 months. And I was like, is that bad, sir? He goes, don't call me sir. I was like, oh, okay, let's start over again. Who are you again? And so we figured it out. And I told him why I did what I did. And he goes, that's BS. They can't do that. But sure as crap, that major took care of it. And I went to Fort Knox basic training under ROTC, right? Mm-hmm. And you know what's crazy about that? So I didn't know this. I thought they owned me already. It turns out when you go to basic training under ROTC, you don't sign your contract till you get back. Because what ROTC does is they hedge their bets, which is probably pretty smart. I mean, you've seen officers, right? So what they do is you go and you go through a regular basic training, except they shorten it by 2 weeks because they think you can handle it, right? So they really jam it in. You don't get the weekends off and all that's fine. You come back and they're technically supposed to be nice to you so that they can get you to contract. So I remember, Doug, the first time I get there, this Army captain comes into our barracks bay. I'm taking it super serious. I'm like, this is where I want to be. We have 2 drill sergeants. They're infantry guys and they're at Fort Knox. I don't know what they were doing there. And the captain comes in and he's like, ladies and gentlemen, it's really wonderful to have you. We're so happy and proud that you've chosen to do this. We hope you have a great time this summer. And in my mind, I'm like, great time? Why haven't you kicked my teeth in yet? Like, what are we talking about, right? And so I was like, did I sign up for something crazy? And I remember he was an E6. He's like, yes, sir. The drill sergeant's like, yes, sir. Great job. We're going to have a great time. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. And the captain's like, carry on.
Now I'm going to kill you.
and you watch the one drill sergeant walk him and the other ones. And he goes like this. The dude walks in and does the scene right out of the movie. He grabs the trash can, throws it at us. Like we had to part like Moses to not get hit. And I was like, hell yeah. And it was on after that. Those 2 Muldoons were tough as balls, bro. I totally credit my attitude, right? The biggest compliment I ever got as an officer was, hey, sir, you were enlisted before, right? Right? Because to me, that meant a lot, right? I meant a lot. And I credit those 2 guys. I wish I knew their names. Oh, I saw one of them. It was hilarious. I was in Korea and we were off somewhere in Seoul. I mean, really super random. Like Seoul's a huge city. And I heard this dude's voice and I got tingles down my spine. I was like, holy shit, that's my drill sergeant. And I went and looked for him and I said, what's up, drill sergeant? And it must happen all the time where like some Joe finds their drill sergeant and he got this face. And then he saw that I was an officer and he goes, and then we were okay.
Hey, what's up, sir?
He thought he was going to get crap. So anyway, so that's how I got in there. I felt this huge need to serve. And then Doug, originally I said, I don't care. I'll drive a truck. I just want to be able to say I earned, the right to be an American. You know what I mean? Like they opened their doors. They saved our family's life. America did. The value of being an American means like the world to me. It's worth dying and protecting for even today. So I just wanted to serve. And so but the longer I was in, the more I was like, truck driver. I can't drive a truck. I mean, God bless truck drivers, but I can't look at myself and say some dude in World War II in Vietnam got drafted and went to die. And I drove a truck of my own free will. I'm not doing that. Right. And that's not criticism. It's just what I can live with. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm in infantry. That's why I tried to become a paratrooper. That's why I did all the things. Not that, I think I'm special. It's just that I wanted to prove that I wasn't soft, but I was very soft. I just wanted to tell you that I was very soft.
I've got so many responses to every one of the things that you just said. So real quick, funny story with drill sergeants. So I went to Air Force basic training. It's stressful because, you have to be in bed by 9 and stuff like
That's
that.
Right.
It was a moment that it's a time that I'll never forget. It absolutely shaped who I became.
Absolutely.
But I remember their names. I remember their aftershave. I remember those that smoked and those who were not smokers. The ones that did knife hands are the ones that would point at you like this. And I mean, just the silly things. I remember all of those things, but there was this one guy, Staff Sergeant Saavedra. So years later, I'm at McCord and I'm security forces. Okay. I'm under arms, got a gun on and everything. And I'm on patrol one night and I stop into Burger King and I get my stuff and I walk over and I'm filling up the cup at the drink fountain. And I just get that feeling. I didn't even hear a voice. Like you said, icy fingers down the back of your neck. I was like, something's wrong. It's like, if I had known any better, like, did I just walk into an armed robbery and not see it? I mean, it was just like evil, like something was about to steal my soul. And I just kind of looked over to my left a little bit and he's sitting there with a hamburger staring at me. I was like, Sergeant Saavedra, how you doing, sir? And he's like, hey, what's up? I'm like, you were one of my training instructors. He's just like, yeah, cool. It looks like you're doing all right. It was a senior airman by the time. It was an E4. I mean, it was just like,
that's so cool.
Dude, just that impact still.
Sure.
3 years later, I was like, I got a gun now. Tough guy.
Yeah.
I was still afraid. I was like, yeah, well, good to see you, Sergeant.
Thanks.
I got out of there as quick as I could.
Speaking of, my boy just graduated basic training from the Air Force. And I'm telling you, we can do all the jokes aside. Anyone who listens
Air Force does it right, bro. Air Force does it right.
Anyway.
Let's just go ahead and say it.
Anyone who listens to this should understand my words. I can bust your chops. You understand that? But when you put a uniform on for this country, you're my brother. I don't give a damn if you swept the floor or if you were a 4-star general, right? The minute you put that uniform on, you're my brother and sister, and it's you and me versus the world. Anybody screws with you there. So I think it's hilarious when someone makes an Air Force joke, and my first question is, what branch were you in?
Well, I was going to go into the Army, but I would have hit a drill sergeant. Or I wish you would get in my face. I couldn't go in. I'd hit a drill sergeant. Sure you would, champ.
I think like civilians that are always like,
I almost did.
I'm like, but I'm going to tell you something. This boy was lost, and I came into his life late. If I could have just gotten him like 4 years earlier, right? I feel like I could have helped guide him a little more, but we didn't have that. That was just reality. I came into his life late. So when we got there to, graduation, I was like, why am I so emotional? I am emotional, And then we go downstairs. We go down the stairs to the parade field, and he's all locked up. And I was like, look at this, like freaking born again hard, right? And so you got to tap him and before they release him. So his mom taps him. They have an incredible hug. She's emotional. And then so I was like, hey, how was it? And he goes, this is easy. Were you raised by my mom? And I started laughing. I was like, this guy, he's going to do great. He's going to do great. So, and now he's talking about what's crazy. You know what? Do you literally know the conversation I had last night with Heather? She said, Logan thinks he made a mistake. And I was like, oh no, shoot. Right. And she goes, he wants to go to Ranger school. And I was like, yes.
You can do that in the Air Force.
I know, but I just need you to understand the journey that the Air Force has taken this kid on and why I'm so proud. We went from a guy who was selfish to a guy who is selfless. And now he was afraid of his shadow. I mean it. Like when he graduated high school, we were going to take him skydiving. I was going to jump out, and him and his mom we're gonna that lady right there. We're going to tandem, right? He's afraid of his shadow. He wouldn't do it. Right. I took Tony, like my other son. We skydived together. It was something we offered. Awesome. This kid is telling me, and it may or may not happen. He wants to go to Ranger School. I cannot be more grateful to the process, you know what I mean? For the man that they took out of him, you know what I mean? And so people are like, hey, would you go to the military? Let's see what's happening to Biden and all this stuff, what he's doing in the military. The military transcends, okay? Because the purpose of the military is not for the commander-in-chief. That guy or gal in the future gets to definitely color it. I understand that. But we fight for each other and we fight for our country, right? And so I urge my children, and if God help, I would be crushed if something happened to one of my kids. You have no idea. You're going to have to come find me, bro. I'm just telling you, if something happened to one of my children. But I think what you get from service, what they will get is a trillion more than we will give. You know what I mean? It just more. So the 16-year-old girl, we don't have to worry about her. Like, we did some stuff with Task Force Dagger, and she was around all these like pipe hitters and fucking intel guys who've actually gone and direct action on bad guys. And we were driving away this summer, and she goes, I know what I want to do. And we were like, yes, ma'am. She goes, I want to kill bad guys. And I was like,
wow.
I'm like driving at 90 miles an hour, and Heather's like, maybe you're going a little fast. I was like, oh, I didn't even realize. I was so enamored by her attitude, you know what I mean? So
you're like, okay, going through the songs, cue, let the bodies hit the floor. So say that again.
Yeah, that's exactly
Selfie.
Right. That's exactly right.
Hashtag winning at life.
That's it.
Dude, I'll tell you, man, my son's 18 now. And like most 18-year-old boys, he's trying to figure out what he wants to do. And, he's got his interest. And God love me, he's a good kid. And he's the same student I was. Didn't care about homework. Everything else was more important. Right. If I stayed awake in class, which I did, I would pass the tests and the exams. So I would always have passing grades. I would not a lick of homework. His problem, though, is he takes the placement tests every year and ends up in honors classes and AP classes. And I'm like, dude, if you're not going to do the work, just fail the tests so you stop having the work load. He doesn't get that. He's like, oh, test time. I'm done. Like with math. Yeah, it's like you have to show your work. Well, I don't need to draw 28 smiley faces and 18 slashes through them to show my work. That's the answer. How do you know? He's like Michelle. She's an accountant. She sees numbers and spreadsheets like the Matrix. Like when you go to the mall, like way back in the day, and you're like, hey, it's a picture of a 3D sailboat. What? It's a bunch of dots.
I agree.
She can look at numbers and like, oh, that's where it ties in here, and that's the problem there. And I probably just completely misuse those accounting terms because I don't know them, but he's like that with numbers and stuff. And I was like, yeah, dude, the Air Force Reserve, it's blue. You like the color blue. There's 400 jobs to choose from. They pay for your college, yada, yada, yada. But, dude, I know the changes that came in me. I know when it happened. I mean, it's in my book, that night standing in front of the mirror on Firewatch. And I would say, and you're probably still processing this, but I would say that you were so emotional when he graduated basic training because you knew what he was feeling.
Yes.
And you knew what the next 4 years or more of his life were going to be like, the experience he was going to have, the travel he's going to have, the opportunities. And like you said, man, service transcends politics and everything else. People that I serve with, nobody's offended by anything. Like you and I can make fun of the Army all day long. You can talk about how soft the Air Force is. We could talk about Marines eating crayons, Navy, you go to the Navy ball and your +1 is, well, we can make fun of that, but somebody that has never served and doesn't know what service is, you're right. Don't you open your mouth. That's my brother. That's my sister. So we can beat each other up, but don't you dare talk about my brother or sister or my dumb cousin.
You know what I tell my son? Don't be the guy that lives with regret. You will regret it. I promise you. You will regret. So like my son, that's my 20-year-old. He's still figuring out. He is blossoming into, you know what he told me the other day? He's doing an internship at the Capitol. And
I saw the pictures.
you want to talk about like a moment, a dad moment. So whoever he's interning for had him handing out like these things to all the representatives, and he came by in my office. We chatted for a moment, and then he's like, I got to go. I got to get back to work. And I was like, hey, simmer down. I'm a representative. Okay. And he's like, okay.
But I don't work for you.
That's
Yo.
correct. So he said, somebody gave him a hard time. I was like, you tell him that you're my son? And he goes, absolutely not. And I was like, why not? And he goes, Dad, I don't tell anybody you're my dad. And I was like, why? Because I'm trying to make a name for myself. Then they can find out you're my dad. And I was like, I listen, I try to keep my crap together. Okay. And when he left, I just sat on my couch in my office like, I made it. I made it. I made it. My son is a goddamn man. You know what I mean? That statement alone, every pain, man, because raising a boy is just like, it is painful somewhere around 14 and around 18. It gets a little better, but God dang it. I was so proud of him. He'll never understand the pride of a father in a man that you're looking at. I made this thing, and the man is looking back at me. He's like, I'm not you. I'm going to be me. And I was like, yes, that's all I want. You know, be better than me. Go crush it. So the only thing I do tell him this. I say, your life is your story. I wrote my story, right? We started this whole podcast with how, like, mine is not a traditional path. That's why I've had 55,000 jobs, and I do because it's me. Maybe that's not you. But do not be 50 years old and say this, I would have done it, but. So right now in my chapter in life, I just turned 50 last year. I'm around men who thank me for my service all the time, which is the most. I want them to do that because there's plenty of people out there that haven't heard it, that put on a uniform, sacrifice, got hurt, and thought it was for. So I want them to do that because it's the right mindset, but it's the most uncomfortable thing. And then they say, you know, I almost served, but I had a knee hurt. Or I almost served, but I had this thing. And so what they're telling you is not the thing, the reason why. They're telling you, I wish I would have done it. I'm a little bit ashamed of it. And now I want you to know that I would have, but didn't. And I don't want you to think less of me. You know what I mean? And I don't, just to be honest with you, anyone's listening to this and you've said that to me, I don't think less of you. Every man has his or her path, but that shame or regret or that second thought you have from not doing it, for my son, I say, don't feel that. Never allow yourself to feel that. If you don't want to serve in a military uniform, go serve some other way. Go make sure that you gave before you go get. You know what I mean? And
I like that. I like that.
And you will never live with regret. It's the worst thing you could do. And I see it because there's so many good dudes. There's so many good dudes out there. You know what I mean? And they just wish they would have just said, sign me up. I don't know what I'll do. Just sign me up and then I'll go. I'm scared. I was scared. You know, I don't know about you, but the way Danny Alvarez works, I go, I could probably do that. And then I don't even check to see if I actually can do that. And then when I'm in the middle of it, I'm like, my God, what have I done? All right. So infantry is a perfect example. I did not want the burden of driving the truck and then saying I could have done more. So I signed up for the infantry. And I remember in ROTC, I was the only kid in my class, and people were like, are you crazy? You know what they do, right? You know how hard it is. And I was like, yeah, that's the freaking Army. You know what I mean? That's what the Army does. Mm-hmm. So I then walked around with the credit of being the wannabe tough guy, right? Because they thought it was crazy to do that. And I was like, oh, I like that. Maybe it's a little crazy. It's tough. It's different. And I remember this guy, his name was Tom Aiken. We were on probably Road March 1000 in the middle of Fort Benning, right? Dark, it's cold, it's the next damn hill, and I quit. I just want you to know. I the whole time I'm full of self-doubt, right? I quit. It's dark. The only thing we see is the cat eyes in the front of the helmet, right?
The cat eyes, yep.
And all I did was this, got in the middle, and just slowed my pace to let people pass me by. I was done. I checked out. I said, what am I freaking doing here? You know what I mean? Like, I would call my buddies in armor, and my buddy like had never been to the field. I'm in the field every week. Okay. I signed up for it. I'm a dummy if I say I complain about it, but I was being weak. They're walking right by me. Tom comes up behind me and says, in the dark, and I know what you're doing. You're not going to quit. Let's go. I bet you he doesn't even remember this. I don't even know where he is in life. You know what I mean? But that dude single-handedly pushed me and then put his hand on my ruck and pushed me until I got back in line. No embarrassment. He never told anybody. I quit. Okay. And so I never forget that moment, because there's times where what the Army did, what the military did, was I had this limit in my head that is nowhere near the limit of this body. Okay. And so you want to talk about things that the military teaches you. It's that. It's like you thought you were this person. You're this person, right? Look, you can't even see my fingers on your screen. It's infinite of who you really are. And I'm not romanticizing it. This is the reality of my life. So I never thought I'd get out of the Army. And I got out of the Army because I thought I was getting married. It was this long story. I married this woman. I fell in love with her. I thought I was going one direction. But I took what I learned in the military and I applied it to real life. And in real life, there's people that live within that limit, right? And so you look like a hero because you don't accept this left and right limit. And you go, there's no limit. Like, move your hands down. What do you want to do? You want to explode? Go explode. And so the bar is very low, right? The bar is very low to look like a hero. You don't have to do much, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm not special. I'm not a hero. I just literally did what they taught me, you know what I mean? And applied that to real life. So there's pluses and minuses to it. It could be dangerous for you because when you are that way, it's dangerous to those that like the limit, right? People that live within the limit go, why is that dude not adhering to what we do? You know what I mean? And because you look like some shiny thing, that because you have no limits, that's dangerous to people that love the limits. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you become a target for people that are less than, who
And
don't have that, who are weak of character or mind or whatever the case is going on. And
we're full of it.
Yeah.
We're full of weak men. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is what you want to talk about, but we are full of weak men.
And that is just Doug and Danny having a conversation, man. I've got this whole script of stuff that I wanted to talk about, but
we can talk about it.
Dude, I just love talking to you. I mean, even if it is going to the frickin' Waffle House, classy.
You got to tell them why. You got to tell them what you're talking about.
Well, no, you invite me to breakfast. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to breakfast. Going to meet Representative Alvarez. Danny and I are going to have breakfast. I'm thinking some nice, classy place or whatever. Take me to a Waffle House.
I'm
like, dude, there's somebody else's breakfast stuck to this laminated menu that I was just handed.
Where do you think my pork chops get flavor? It's from right there, bro.
Dude, I love it. Any time I get to spend with you is fun, man. It's always good. When you're coming home from Tallahassee and you give me the phone call, I'm like, hey, it's Danny. Everybody shut up. In fact, I get so excited when I talk about you. I told you when we had breakfast last time that I've got a rule in my house now. It's actually called the Danny rule, and Michelle made it.
Jeez, I forgot. Yes.
The Danny rule is anything that Danny asks me to do or tells me to do or suggests that I do, I have to wait 24 hours before I get a response, have a conversation with Michelle, and pray on it.
Good.
There's a 24-hour cool off period before I can answer you to anything.
Maybe if I would have had a Michelle,
I can get a gun quicker than I can answer you.
Maybe if I would have had a Michelle in my life earlier, I might have had a couple of better decisions.
No, you've got a Heather now. That's all you need.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, moving forward, your leadership stuff, I knew that you were a speaker. You had a podcast. You and Gino were doing this stuff back in the day. So many business ventures, law degree, law practice, all of that stuff. But what I really want to get into is Danny Alvarez, the leader, the servant. I'm sorry, I don't want to say that. The leader who serves, not a servant leader. You are a leader who serves. There's a difference. I want to get into that. And like you said, man, we surrounded by weak men. The conversations that you and I have had, even after you read my book, dude, men don't talk to each other that way. So my question is, and I've asked myself this question, if we're not having these questions, what does that say about us as men? And what does that say about us as friends? That we can't be the hand on the back of the rucksack to get you in the place where you should be, where I know you can be, and show you that you can be there. Why aren't we the hand on the rucksack for other people? Nobody has to know that we're there. It's in the dark. You may not even know my voice, but you knew I was there. And I think that's the mission that I'm on now, is just to be that nudge in the dark. Not that I've got it figured out myself, but you've had your own path, man. You know, you went to work for the sheriff's office where we first met, and you were our public affairs officer, and you did the Hispanic Advisory Council and all that stuff. You'd been involved for quite some time, but when you took over that role as the PAO, and I remember telling you then that what you've done to not market, but to bring exposure to the good work that the people of the sheriff's office were doing, it was amazing. I mean, you have this point of where it was, and then the stake from where they were to where they were within weeks of you being there, you couldn't even see it from the point that you raised them to. But with that and the things that you were doing there to bring light to the good work that the folks were doing there, you paid a price for that. I don't want to talk about some of the insights that you had, one through your service and then your service with the sheriff's office. And, I think that your service in the Army and your experiences with first responders has really played a huge role in where you're at now. I just want to unravel some of your stuff with the sheriff's office, man, because I heard it on James's podcast, Behind the Shield, and I was like, man, I've shared my entire book with Danny. We've known each other, 9 years, friends. We had never had these conversations before.
That's right. And actually, after reading your book, I told Heather I was kind of pissed at myself, you know what I mean, that I didn't reach out more, or I didn't,
Everybody says that.
I
forget it, because nobody knew.
I get it. I get that. But, like every moment in your life is something that you grow from or you choose not to grow from. It's really your option. I know that the sheriff's office saved me. And most people don't realize that in my life, I was listless, okay? Seeking purpose. Does that make sense? Like I when I left the Army, and I told you, I never meant to leave the Army. So I joined the FBI and I got into the FBI. And then my wife at the time was like, hey, bub, you go to the FBI, we'll probably not make it. And I was like, well, crap. This is not to call her out. This is, she and I are totally fine, but this is just the story. And when I left the Army, as I'm trying to figure this out, this is 2001. There is no support network. There is nobody talking about this. There's no anything. And I'm trying to figure out why I literally cannot get dressed in the morning, right? Because I can't look at myself. I'm making a obscene amount of money. I'm buying everything that I want. I have more guns. I have boats. I have trucks. And I'm like totally empty, right? I had a son, right, in that time period. And when Tony was around, had incredible purpose. And you would be like, well, that should have been enough. And I'm like, it was enough, except I got to look at this boy who I'm trying to raise into a man and tell him to go live a life when I'm not doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So listless, looking for purpose. So when I went to volunteer at the sheriff's office, right? First off, I was on the Hispanic Advisory Board. It was just a touch point. I was like, oh, that feels good. That feels really good. And by the way, if you look at the sheriff's Hispanic, any advisory council, they are like, here's the sheriff's office. They're like a satellite over here, just related formally to the sheriff's office, right? I knew I needed more. I knew I didn't know I couldn't be a cop. I should have just gone and been a cop. You understand that? I really should have I'm just saying, like for what I wanted, I should have just gone and been a cop. So fast forward, I get on the shooting review board. Okay. I get on the shooting review board. So every time,
Danny, I'm sorry, buddy.
Every time a sheriff's deputy in Hillsborough County releases a round from their weapon, not in training, it would come before the board. I'm talking about dog shooting, and I got really into it. I super nerded out, and I loved it. In fact, I know you remember old Ron Hartley, right? So and for those that you don't know, Ron Hartley was essentially now he's like legendary, but He is this old curmudgeon of an old school cop that pretty much could say anything and everything he wanted to the sheriff. And did say that, right? He was like that guy. He was like Sergeant Smedlap, who always like was wondering why he never went past E6 because he couldn't shut his mouth. So that guy once came up to me, he was like, "Who are you?" And I was like, and I told him, he goes, "Well, you just keep doing what you're doing." And for me, I was like, did that guy just give me a backwards compliment, right? Because, and what was happening was I was like standing up for deputies who were doing good shootings, right? Like we were looking at it like an infantry guy, applying the law, because by then I was already a lawyer, and I was disagreeing with some of the decisions of the chain of command, and that I was becoming a thorn, you know what I mean? But I didn't give a crap, you know what I mean? Because right was right and the deputy was right. So then when the new sheriff came aboard and he offered me this position, I had a thriving law practice. I was actually making money. Like I had hundreds of cases, and we were getting to the point there where they were like self-fulfilling. I had staff, we had created processes, and I could go out and about and then just go to court and settle, or go to court and push the case, making money. And then they offered me the job, and I think it paid, like the first time, it was like, I had to negotiate to like $85,000. I was like, oh.
Welcome to public service.
I know, but I was like, I got to go home and tell my wife that I just got us a great job at $85,000. And oh, by the way, babe, knowing me, you probably will not see me for like the next 3 years, right? And little did I know that funny became how truthful that became. But bro, the sheriff's office saved me. You know what I mean? When I got a uniform and I was amongst the men and the women, like people are like, "Hey, why are you out here at 2 a.m? I was like, I'm dying to be out here. I love this. Like I felt like I was back running with the boys and the girls, right? And my fulfillment, it had nothing to do with being on TV. It had nothing to do with like being in the chain of command on command staff. It had everything to do with going to figure out who this cat was, why he's serving, why we're out here together, and helping solve problems. You know, like one of my favorite points, like I remember we had this bank robbery and I saw it come out over at MDT, and then I just happened to be monitoring it, and I was like, oh damn. And I rolled to it. And so it was less than an hour old. Like the lieutenant was just arriving, right? And they're like, what are you doing here? I'm like, well, let's get this thing out. And they're like, do we do that? And I'm like, let's find this guy. And so within like less than 2 hours, we had information out about the bank robbery. And to be honest with you, that pissed off the chain of command. That pissed off like the old chain of command, right? Because they're like, we don't do that. I was like, well, we did it. You know what I mean? And not only did we did it, we found the guy the next day. We had 0 leads, and then we found the guy the next day, right? So I felt like I was actually contributing. And at the next bank robbery, she's now like a major. I remember when I won't mention her name, but she brought me in the back. She's like, where is Danny? And they brought me in the back so I could start putting out information to help him out. To me, I was like, I know that sounds silly, but I thought I was bad to the bone. And internally, my bucket of purpose was through the roof. But then I get to protect these people and I get to tell their story. Like here we have the good guys in real life, right? And because they're doers, you know, cops, firefighters, farmers, these are men and soldiers. These are men and women that don't need credit. They don't want credit. They want their actions to speak for them. Evaluate me. Did I do a good job? Yes or no? Tactically, technically proficient. I don't need you to give me an attaboy other than, did I do that right? If I did that right, I got the bad guy. That's my win. I don't need credit. But this was 2017. And even then we were losing the battle of public perception, right? And so somehow cops were turning into the people that had to prove their value versus people that we put on pedestals that prove their value the minute they put the badge on their chest. You know what I mean? And that's a perversion. I don't want to hear it. I refuse to hear it that we have bad apples in the police world and that colors the entire police world. That's shit. Okay? Excuse my French. In no other industry do we say all doctors are bad because they kill people. But you want to know, malpractice kills tons of people. And I don't go around vilifying doctors. That guy saves my life. right?
Mhm.
So this world where we can take the modern warrior, we can take the modern guy and gal who puts their life on the line and think that we're going to sacrifice them and we're going to be quiet about it. That's not something we take idly, right? So then I said, well, maybe that's my purpose. Maybe that's my purpose. But I'm telling you, that was my outward purpose. Inside, when I got to roll up on a crime scene and I went under the yellow and I got to stand there with you guys, and then I could help you in some manner or fashion. And when those men and women began to trust me, bro, my purpose bucket was full. It was overflowing. No, it's not money. It's not credit. It's not title. It is utterly the point that a dude that I look up to thinks I'm worthy of standing next to him. Bro, I'm on cloud 9. I'm on cloud 20. I don't even know if there's clouds high enough, you know? I don't know how you explain that to somebody, you know? And so there was a price.
People who understand it know what you're talking about.
Well, yeah, you're probably right. You know, you're probably right. Like for me, as a politician, and I hate that title, I don't give a damn what other people think about me. You can't do it. Clearly, I have to get more votes yes than no to win and stay in this job. So I'm not trying to be flippant. You know what I mean? I listen and we are reactive and responsive. But when people are like, that guy's an idiot, that guy's a jerk, it's like, it's got to bounce off you, because if not, you'll die in the murk of self and self questioning. You know what I mean? And you can't do it. I care very much. I'm just telling you this right now. What a soldier, a firefighter, a farmer, and a cop thinks. If those dudes think I'm a douchebag, it hurts. Now, we all live in cop world, right? And I still work in law enforcement right now, right? We know that there's idiots in every job. You know what I mean? And we know that policing and soldiering is, the population of that is a reflection of the society that they protect. So there's good guys, there's dummies, there's smart guys, there's intellectual. So there's still some idiots that say shit, right? Stuff, but you know that. But if a guy like you came to me and go, hey, dude, you're weak, or hey, dude, you're wrong, I'm like, I mean it. Like, I don't know if it's good that I'm exposing that, you know what I mean, like to the world, and give what I think is one of my vulnerabilities, my real ones, but it matters to me because I want those people to know, and those are the only people that live with honor, right? Let's back that up. Those are people that work and live with honor as part of their life, right?
It's one of their values. Yeah.
That's
one of their core values.
And they do it for a living, right? So to me, they're up here, right? Like a civilian can be up here, but I don't know that immediately. To me, like if you said, hey, I'm going to write a check with my life every day, you go right up here. You understand that? So when they talk and they have something critical and they say, Danny, you let me down, you might as well get the bleed kit, because once I pull that out, it's going to start bleeding out. You know what I mean? So when I say that they saved me, after that, man, I had a pep in my step. You said I'm back in the gym. I probably could have lifted the whole building. You know what I mean? Like I was so proud when I had friends that had same value. It was awesome. I was born again. And so at the sheriff's office, there can only be one shiny thing. And I was in a support role. Okay. And my job was to prompt and promote the shiny thing. Okay. And I respect it and I loved it. And I would do it again. I'm just telling you this. I would do it all over again. Ultimately, though, as a civilian that was non-certified, there's only so high you can go. You know what I mean? And it is. So I said, let me figure out a proper exit strategy that honors the men and women that I served with, right? Because I say it that way. And then lets me continue my service. And I thought that would be to go be a judge, right? Let me take this law degree, which I don't think is that fancy, you know what I mean? And then let me go figure out how to do good with that. So I said, okay, I'm going to run for judge. And that was my exit strategy. And so I ran for judge and lost. That was during COVID, but that was ultra revealing during COVID. You know what I mean? Like during COVID, that was ultra revealing. We did some things in Hillsborough County that I did not like, you know what I mean? And those things, so I've already had my purpose reawakened. Okay. And now I have my mission reawakened to protect and serve the men and women that I serve with. And then I elevate that when COVID attacked our Constitution. You know what I mean? And that's my interpretation, right? And so after that, it was game on. After that, it was game on.
So I want to go back and the sheriff's office. So I will say this, having to deal with the PIO and the PAOs and my different capacities. When you left, it was a very different feeling having to call the PIO or PAO's office and have them come out to the scene or brief them. Very different. In fact, yeah, you're the last PIO I ever saw on scene. Yeah. So that says something.
Can I tell you, I almost feel like I failed, right? Because I feel like I left too fast, if that makes sense. So when I got there, it was me and Larry. He was my corporal. Mm-hmm. And I guess we're just going to keep this going. Like,
keep it going, bro. This is real life, man. I was messing with my camera because I didn't like the angle that was. I still don't, but whatever. We deal with it.
7 children, so there's a great chance that you'll have like people coming in and out. Larry McKinnon, whether you liked him or not, 3 times he had been at TPD. He retired from TPD, Tampa Police Department, had been involved in uses of forces that in one of them he saved fellow officers. So I think Larry McKinnon doesn't need to prove crap to anyone. You understand that? He put his life on the line. Whatever.
I like Larry. Good guy.
Good dude.
Sold me PMags at cost. Where you couldn't find him anywhere. He's like, I said, bro, I need some mags. Come see me. I got you.
So he lived within the parameters that he was allowed. Okay. Now think about when I came on board, I was the first person that the sheriff had ever hired, right? In fact, the sheriff didn't hire somebody himself for like 3 or 4 months after me. You know what I mean? So I was the first person. And in fact, when I went to go interview with the chief deputy was confused as to what I was doing there. But I was I loved being a Chad guy, just so you understand that, right? And I walked in, and my orders from the sheriff were tell our story, right? And I said, if you want me to do this, I'm going to shut down my law firm, but I need to have full reign to tell these people's story. I'm going to go with a SWAT team. I'm going to go with a dive team. I'm going to go on patrol. I'm going to live in patrol cars. And he looked at me like, yeah, like I was an idiot saying that. But the reality was, in police structure world, paramilitary world, the longer it is, the harder it stays in that box. And to break that box, you must be doing something crazy. So I was a super disruptor. Okay. And I know I rubbed people the wrong way. You know what I mean? And it was hard for the upper chain of command to begin to trust, because they're stuck in this structured box that's always been done one way, and they've been burned before if they steps outside the box, so they understand to keep inside the box. And then here comes a guy who's like a bouncing ball inside the box going, I'm not doing that, right? And so when I show up and try out for the SWAT team, you know what I mean, with them, they're like, what, really? And the SWAT guys loved it. They're like, you serious? In fact, the photo that like, like on iPhones, like now it tells your, like it shows your photo, so the photo I have is of me at the top of the 115-foot ladder. Like during SWAT tryouts, you have to climb to the top, give like an okay to the SWAT operator that's there. So they've got to prove that you're not afraid of heights and stuff like that. And so I use that photo. I love that photo, right? Because it reminds me of this time. There was a perfect time at the sheriff's office. Like I had total freedom. I went out with the dive guys. Most people didn't even know that the sheriff's office had a tracking team. I took the tracker course. I am horrible tracker, just for the record. I think they passed me just because they didn't want to say that, like I failed. I would have loved to have said I failed, you know what I mean? Because that was not easy. I literally lived on the street. My wife was like, did you get called out again? And I was like, no, right? Because I worked during the day, but how was I supposed to go learn, right? So I just went right seat. And there's some time we got in some hairy crap. We got in some hairy crap that I admit now, and I'll never tell any names, but there was times where I was like, this is what being a cop is like. So put it this way, there's time, there was a pre-body armor and there was a post-body armor, right? And so I wore body armor afterwards because of the incident because, woo, that was close. You know what I mean? And so, I did things at the sheriff's office that nobody, and nobody would do today. No one would be allowed to do today. And for that, Sheriff Crosser, Chad, I give him, he was a man of his word. He let me dive in so I could understand, I could gain the trust of the men and women, and then I could tell their story. You know what I mean? And so all those men and women that participated, they should know how much I love them. They should understand how much in doing so, I feel extremely protective, number one, of the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. I always say, that's where I was born, right? So the men and women there are mine. And the funny thing is, like, Doug, I went out last Thanksgiving, like, because I wanted to do a ride along and thank everybody during Thanksgiving. So this one lieutenant pulled his entire platoon in for me. And then I was like, here I am. I'm the man now. I'm the establishment coming to, hello, everybody. Good to see you. Happy Thanksgiving, right? And I thought I was going to meet, old family. I only knew 3 people in that platoon. You know what I mean? Because that's how fast the sheriff's office is growing. And I'd only been gone 3 years at that point,
Yeah.
So I don't know where the hell I was going with that, but I love them. That shaped my attitude going forward, where when I get to the Capitol now people are like, oh, that's Danny. He's the cop guy. I love it. Call me that. I'm happy to do that. You know what I mean? And you've heard me say this. People love cops and firefighters until it's time to pay for them, right? And so, like, people definitely do not say things around me that might be critical in that way because, hey,
because you're ready for the argument.
Yeah, be ready. Let's make sure you know what you're talking about. I know what I'm talking about, and because I've been there with those men and women, and I mean it. Like, there's what I've almost gotten my ass beat. I was waiting for backup. Like, I'm like, did you press the button, guy? Because like this is going back, right, bro? So there's this one time I'm riding with this female corporal, and I'm only saying that it's female because it doesn't really matter, but her exquisite ability to get us out of this problem was amazing. So we get to a call, and there's a guy who had been threatening to kill his neighbor. Okay, this is what she's explaining that she's heard over the radio because it was in her ear, not all over the car speaker. And I was like, that's cool. All right, we go. And so she's a corporal. And when we get there, the guy has broken into someone's house. I'm like, how the homeowner didn't kill him, I have no idea. But the homeowner is outside the house waiting for us. And the guy describes him as this, is huge man is inside my house threatening to kill somebody. And I was like, oh, okay, we're waiting. We're going to wait for backup, right? And she looked at me like I'm a jerk. I was like, my bad. And in we go. So before we get to the threshold, the man inside the house waiting for us goes, I'm going to kill you if you walk in here. And I was like, I don't have a gun. I'm looking for my knife that's in my pocket. So I didn't know what I'm doing, right? And so I wore my shirt, and remember, like, it used to have the sheriff's star, but then we took the sheriff's star off, and his book, and mine was gold, right, for like some sort of alleged rank, right? So we walked in, and I looked like I was with the sheriff's office. That helps sometimes, and that hurts sometimes. And this time, I was like, this is going to really hurt.
When you don't have a gun belt, when you need a gun belt, that hurts.
That's exactly right. So when we get there, this dude pops into a doorway at the end of the room we're in, and the guy outside failed to describe him properly. The dude had traps that if I sliced them off would feed a small country for freaking years, okay? The dude's arms were this big, and I was like, today is the day. And look, I had no business. I was thinking, how am I going to explain to the chief deputy that I, as a civilian observer, got into a fight with a suspect, because I'm never going to live down if I don't get involved when this deputy's getting her ass beat and I just stood there. It's not happening, right? Mm-hmm. So then she'd already called for backup. Ultra cool, ultra calm. I am less than that, right? And I'm standing by the window. I have my flashlight in my hand. I'm playing by the door because I'm going to beat this dude with this flashlight, okay?
You're going to subdue him. You're going to subdue him.
No, I'm
That's the
civilian.
word, counselor.
You subdue him. I'm going to beat him for the
I'm
sake.
fixing to subdue the shit out of him.
That's exactly right. So I see another deputy pull up, and the deputy's lost. He doesn't know where to go. So I flash him with my flashlight, and she pulls up. And when she comes in, she goes, I swear, I never forget. She goes like this, because the dude was so big. And then a third guy comes, and the guy starts getting super aggressive. Okay. And I'll never forget, my fists were like this. The other deputy's fists were like this. It was go time. And this corporal talked him down. I mean, talked him down. He kept saying, I'm going to kill Kyle. I was like, where's Kyle? Wherever Kyle is, we got to keep Kyle away from this scene because we've got him calm. And I swear to God, just like clockwork, a dude named Kyle comes to the door and goes, is whatever his name there? And he heard him. And we lost it. We were going to start to fight him again. It was just, I'm telling you, I have 1,000 other stories like that.
I was going to say, bro, that's just a Monday night in Hillsborough County.
That's right. That's right. But this is why people are like, hey, you were never really a cop. I'm like, they're right. But I was embedded. That's how I like to say it. I was embedded. And I loved it. I loved all those men and women.
Dude, and you endeared yourself to every one of them just by showing up and doing those things because no one else had ever done it before. And I think that was awesome. I want to go back to, even you being on the Hispanic Advisory Council and the shoot team and all that stuff, talking about that and speaking truth to power, as it were. Not a lot of people were doing that at the time. And I think Ron Hartley pulling you aside, being able to recognize one of his own gives no damn type of person. I remember we had to do it was a leadership thing for supervisors, and newly promoted lieutenants had to go for like the last day. It was a morning thing, and you were given the briefing on the PAO's office. And I happened to be in there as a newly promoted lieutenant. There were several others that you would recognize that were in there, and you got up and started talking about the PAO. Then you started talking about leadership, and there was a lieutenant in the room at the time and a colonel at the time who were in the room who looked less than enthused that you went off script. Well, this was a Friday. I recall this. And Michelle recalls it too because nobody told me I needed a sports coat. So Michelle had to drive from home and Lutz to Falkenberg to bring me a freaking sports coat. So anyway, that's a side story. But you started doing that, and I'm taking pages of notes. Your job is not to be the glory, it's to send the glory. All of these things, and just pearls, just absolute leadership pearls. And the next morning, I happened to be at a triathlon, because that's what I did at the time. And that lieutenant who did triathlons with me, she said, hey, what do you think about that thing that Danny did yesterday? And me, not wanting to take a moment to pause and gauge the room or the audience, I said, I think it was outstanding. It was freaking awesome. So nobody does that. Nobody tells you about leadership here. The former chief deputy who hired you, when I made sergeant, he stood up at the podium and he talked about leadership, and he slammed his fist on the podium and talked about having the moral courage to do the right thing. And I felt it, and he meant what he was saying. But nobody else outside of that, and all my military stuff and all my law enforcement career, 31 years of wearing armor and carrying a gun, everything I learned about leadership was either self-taught by the wrong things to do or the right thing to do. It was never a class. I had never read a pamphlet on leadership until I needed to look backwards and validate what I had been doing. But you did. And that really upset a lot of people. And it became clear to me that day at transition when I was cleaning out my area and racking the bike that you overstepped and you weren't supposed to do that. And who does he think he is by having that conversation to talk to our people about leadership? And my comment was, a leader. And that was not very popular either. It's like, well, the guy obviously has done something successful because he's where he is and he's talking to us. He's not sworn. And there was a colonel at the time who I loved dearly. He would say, if you're not sworn, you're not born. And I think you know who I'm talking about.
Yes.
And another guy that will speak his mind and not really care about your feelings. But I valued that you did that because nobody had done it before, and it took a lot of courage. And, we spoke earlier that if people who demonstrate that type of leadership ability and that type of personal ownership to do things like that, to step out. People that are less than are intimidated by that. Your limiting stakes. If you're operating outside of the limiting stakes of where they feel are comfortable or where they feel like they can't measure to you, that scares them. And they see it as a threat. And unfortunately, in the first responder communities and the professions, when you run up against something like that, if you run across somebody who is less than, who has an opportunity to take a shot at you, they're going to do that. So being successful, and I actually wrote a newsletter about it and posted it on LinkedIn, that being successful is no longer about success, it's about survival. And some of those things are very, very short-lived. You start losing credibility for one reason or another. Your leadership in what you've done with law enforcement and first responders, I know that I've been a benefactor on 2 occasions of something you've done. One, your work with the Allied Forces Foundation and the Catamaran Yomp.
Hey.
And I love telling the story about the Yomp. I talked about it on the first podcast I was ever on with a guy that I met on the Yomp, who I'm actually going to do an episode about that because I want to share my experience now that I've had 6 months to really try to process all of it because it's taken that long. So a story for everybody else. Danny, my friend, calls me. We're having a conversation and said, "Hey, bro, I'm retired. I want to do this. I want to do that. I'm doing this thing with a veterans charity." And you're like, "Hey, man, you need to go on this." I'm like, no, I don't rate. Somebody else needs the help. I didn't do this. Somebody else did. And all of the self-deprecating bullshit that we all do because, well, we don't think we've earned it. Or somebody had it worse, so they need it. And you're like, no, my guy's going to call you. Pete. Pete's going to call you, my legal aid. So Pete calls me. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. Pete calls me and I tell him the same thing I told Judy. He goes, yeah, Danny said you were going to say those things. And he told me to say these things to you. And I'm like, man, he front-loaded Pete. I've been shanghaied here. So I ended up going on the Catamaran Yomp, and I'll save the story for that and I've already shared it with you, and I've shared it with some of the listeners, but the experience that you had on the Yomp, you shared some of that with me after I came back, because it was like one of those, you're not going to understand what I'm saying to you until you experience this. I would love to go back this year because I've got about 30 miles of unfinished business to cover. And the same guys from Bus 2, my group of 8, or I was a group of 8, the other 7 guys, they're going back. And
Well, that's good.
Yeah, I've got to get comfortable trying to ask people to sponsor and raise money, and I'll get all that sorted at some point. But the Catamaran Yomp is something that changed my life. It was the impetus for me stepping out and actually starting this.
Good.
Taking a bunch of papers and making it a manuscript and making it hiding in plain sight to tell this story. I learned a lot of lessons on the bus ride with those men and women that we were there with. A lot of things changed for my life because of you, because you said you need to go to this thing. And because of Michelle, because pulling up to the airport, I was like, you know what? Whatever. I don't have to go to this. And she's like, no, you're going to go. You're going to make friends. You know you will. It's going to be good for you. Danny said so. I'm like, yeah, whatever. It's going to be stupid. I don't want to go. And anyway, I got forced to get on the plane, and it was really probably the greatest growth moment of my adult life. So you do that. You give opportunities like that to veterans. You do a lot of work with Task Force Dagger. You do a lot of work for veterans charities. And one of the things that I want to talk about is what you did with ETMS Florida, how that came about. I know the story, but I want you to share that real quick. How did we get ETMS in Florida? Because it's a big deal, man.
I think it may be one of the most transformative things that we will have done to save lives. So I promise you, Doug, if you told me that smoking dog crap had some potential to save a first responder or veteran's life when it comes to PTS, I would figure out a way to fund it. And I would look at a taxpayer and tell them I will take money to do that and tax money to make sure that we get that done. And that may cost me being elected one day because someone says that's not what you're supposed to do with it. And to me, I'm like, listen, I don't know. The debt we owe a veteran or a first responder does not end when they take their uniform off. And if you don't agree with me, then unelect me. That is just what it is. So Pete was a 2nd Ranger Battalion guy. We served in the Army together, both infantry guys. Pete was wounded, lost his leg, He's a stud. He doesn't think he's a stud. It's why I love him. Right? We've been
Awesome, man.
friends
I
for
love that
forever.
guy.
And so he is still very connected to his community. So I have nothing to do with the special operations community, nothing other than like want to be them. You know what I mean? And I never was, you know? So my admiration for conventional and special ops, it's not different. It's just right now, Pete, that was his world. And then all these things happened from that. So Pete's at a bar, literally at a bar, and runs into a second bat guy. They were friends. They're like talking about what each other does. And Pete says, I work with my battle buddy who's a representative, and he loves veterans and I'm trying to protect cops and veterans. And this guy goes, no crap. I work for, and then it was ETMS. And so they start sharing their stories. And the story is there's a thing called the CARE Coalition, which is a special operations community. I call it concierge medical treatment for them. And it's very well deserved. Like they treat
the
them like
Soft Care Coalition, the Preservation of Force and Family.
correct.
It's wonderful.
And so you want that. They're treating them like athletes. We should treat every soldier that way, but I understand how it works. So they're treating them like athletes. And the minute one of them gets hurt, they get their CARE Coalition person, and that person kind of like guides them through their treatment to get them back on duty so that they can back to do the job they're supposed to do. So his name is Brandon. Brandon was the CARE Coalition guy for SEAL Team 6. And they had some dudes who were really, really in a bad way, right? They were about to get med boarded out. Somehow they found, at the time, ATMS was provided and is still provided by a company called Wave Neuro out of California. And they sent, like, I think 3 or 4 of those dudes to California. The guys were on antipsychotics, antidepressants, sleep, alcohol, ruining their families, fighting, getting divorced, the typical story, operator syndrome 101. They went there, they come back like new men, literally like new men. They did not get med boarded. Okay. And so the SOCOM Surgeon General hears that, and hears that and goes, I don't know if I believe that, right? That much. Sends, I want to say about 10 folks to Wave Neuro. It was very expensive back then, you know what I mean? Because they had to fly you there, you got to have housed there, they got to feed you. So it was like a 30-day process. It's a big lift. The results from those 10 folks that were so good that SOCOM eventually invests enough to do a study, an FDA study, to get this approved for PTS, because right now it's only approved by the FDA for depression. Okay. And so what it does is it maps your brain and it figures out, this is Danny explaining it. This is not like how they would explain it. If these are your neural pathways, right, and they're clear and they're communicating in a healthy, normal person, they communicate, they're clear, and they help process your memories to the back. And then you can catalog them in your file system, no problem. But when you've had micro trauma, macro trauma, TBI, lack of sleep, you get these, that your brain eventually goes, and there's these pathways are blocked, bent, obstructed, for lack of a better way. And so this thing maps your brain. They can figure out to a T without even meeting you how you're sleeping, if you're aggressive, if you're anxious, when I first took, because I said, this is bull, okay?
I'd said the same thing.
So I was like, I am the most skeptical guy in the world. So I sat and I let him map my brain. And some dude in California who had never met me, he was a doctor, right? He comes up on the screen and says, Mr. Alvarez, you don't sleep well, do you? And I was like, he says, before you go to bed, you have racing thoughts that keep you awake and you sleep lightly. And I was like, bro, have you been talking to my wife? I mean, I'm not kidding. Like, the dude had figured me out on this paper and had never met me. And I was like, ooh. So we then go to SOCOM and how about this, bro? Like, I am a basic infantry officer. I don't know how they promoted me to captain. I'm still waiting for someone to take that rank away, right? And so here I am at SOCOM. Senator Jay Collins is with me. He's used to that. But now they've got all these like VIP protocols. And so I'm sitting there going, can we just get a briefing, please? And they have like 95,000 people around this board. Like everyone's doing these introductions. And I'm looking at my aide. And I remember telling Pete, I said, Pete, I don't want any of the bull crap. I just need to go in, get an answer. Does this work? Do they believe in this process again? But God bless them. And I'm not being critical.
It's a process, bro.
is just protocol for them. You know what I mean? And so I sat there just waiting and wait. And at the end, they had used it. It had been worked. It worked. They didn't care about one provider or another. Neither do I. And so we went in and we brought a $10 million program to the state of Florida that if you're a veteran or first responder, you sit in the chair and they'll read you, they'll pay it, I pay it, they treat you, and the state of Florida pays for it, you leave. Anecdotally, the folks that have done it, right, are people that I admire, the people that I trust. Overwhelmingly, the things that were promised are coming in results. People are sleeping better, they're being able to process memories better, they're less anxious, and if they're hardcore sufferers of PTS, there's a level of marked degree less, right? No drugs, no pharmacology, no risk to a badge, nothing. Your chain of command doesn't even have to know that you went. But what's ironic is I've been lobbying chains of command to go. You know what I mean? So I've got people in chains of command that have sat in the chair. I'm going to sit in the chair. I get to do so as a veteran. I'm going to sit in the chair after session in April. I'm desperate to go. I really, really want to try it. So, but I keep hearing great things.
Well, I got a call at the end of October. It was at the very end of October from some dude named Brandon from Virginia.
Yeah, that's him.
Some old Ranger dude. And he goes, we've got this program in Florida and Representative Alvarez said that I needed to call you. I was like, all right. Well, I had been looking into stuff like not necessarily wave neuro, but ETMS, the EEG stuff, hyperbaric oxygen therapy as part of the stuff I was looking into, one for me and also for Irreverent Warriors, who I was volunteering for at the time as a coordinator here in Tampa. And I was like, yeah, okay. Yeah, I know what that is, but why, what am I doing? And he's like, yeah, bro, you're going to come in? You're patient one. We just got the call today to turn the lights on. They go on tomorrow morning. Can you be there? I'm like, yeah. So 8:00. I get there. There's no sign on the building. The grass is dead. There's like a burnt out car across the street. I'm like, yeah, okay, well, this is town and country. That checks out. But they were so new when I walked in. The two dudes that I met, Honey, it was the first one that I met. They literally have screwdrivers on the ground because there's not a desk to put them on. They're literally putting together desks. They're like, yeah, man, this is day one. So we did the EEG, and I had Lena Grunlow. She was the PA that did my treatment for me, and she's in Ohio with ETMS Ohio. And I did the EEG, and she did the conference to go over my treatment and all that stuff. And I've had her on the episode. She explained it and all that stuff so people can refer back to that. But she's like, yeah, I'm looking at your EEGs. And she said the same thing. You don't sleep. You've had a lot of head trauma. I'm like, what? She goes, yeah, you don't sleep well. Car crashes, tackles, blast overpressure, gunfire. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. And you don't sleep and you probably have migraines. And how's your cognition? It's like I find myself searching for words in the middle of sentences, the words that I know. I find that I have to read the same page in a book 4 or 5 times. And that's why I heavily tab books that I read, because I know it's something important on that page. And I put notes when I read it because I can't remember stuff from page to page. So anyway, I get this 20-day protocol that I have to do. And I will tell you, Danny, all the things that they say were going to happen, anecdotally, happened within the first 2 treatments. And it only got better.
That's great.
Everything. And, I think one of the things that first responders and veterans don't want to do is they don't want to go down the pill route, or they don't trust if I go tell you that, hey, I've had suicidal ideation. Next thing you know, I've got guys that I work with showing up at my door to Baker-act me. We're not telling the truth.
Badge, guns.
Or take my career.
Right.
So the cool thing about what's being done here in ETMS Florida and the program that y'all have brought here is I go in, show my ID, either my VA card, a 214, or my commission card. They take a copy of it only for this person to validate it as somebody that we can treat and doesn't have to pay. They don't ask for your social. They don't ask for any of that stuff, who you work for, insurance information or anything. It doesn't get reported to anybody but the state to show efficacy and the money that's being spent and how many people are being treated and the results. There's no name attached to any of it, man. There's no fear. It's non-invasive. There's no pills, and it's effective. And
let
man,
me tell
it's
you,
such a gift.
let me tell you, because of my time at the sheriff's office and now my work with TPD, I know that if a cop does not feel safe, they're not going. They're not going to go. So I remember, while we're designing this, Jimmy Petronis, which is just the immediate chief financial officer, he, when you fund something in the state of Florida like this, you have to have an agency who does the oversight. And I was trying to figure out who should do the oversight. I only have like 3 constitutional officers beside the governor. So I went to Jimmy, who is technically the fire marshal of that. So there was some nexus there to him. And then his people started, and he's like, we're in, we want to help. I was like, great. And so they started to put like all these parameters, and I stopped the entire meeting, and I looked at everybody in the eyes, and these are bureaucrats. And I don't say that as a bad word. I'm literally just saying these are not elected people. Their heart is in the right place. They mean well. They're just used to the way the government is structured. I said, stop. I want everyone to look at me in the eyes right now. Cop comes in, shows his badge. That is it. You don't need their name. You don't need nothing. If you do that, I will pull all the funding from this program and I will sink it myself, because you will sink us. And
it'll end before it starts.
And we will harm cops and firefighters. You have no idea. And they're like, you will? You'll kill your own program? I said, faster than this meeting was set up. And then Jimmy goes, I get it. I totally understand, Danny. And by the way, Jimmy he's now a congressman. Just like 2 weeks ago, this last week, he got elected to Congress. Great guy. And I compliment him this, because if I had been in any other agency, it just would have been like, hey, you provide the money and you shut up. Right. And I get it. Right. That's the truth. But they were help me be part of the process so that we can make sure that we set it up right. But I'll tell you this, Doug, the state of Florida actually gives a crap, and they do. It's not Danny Alvarez, because I know I do. But even before then, just the legislature before me funded a $15 million study that's run through the University of South Florida for hyperbaric treatment.
I was actually going to sign up for that before this program came in.
You did. So
Dr. Tuturi is running that one.
This year, I'm going to run a program for psychedelics, right? Let's see. The argument, ETMS for psychedelics, first of all, not one thing helps everybody, okay? So let's just say that. One thing may help more people more than another, okay? I truly believe that it's easier to fund and motivate other politicians to help when there's no drugs involved, right? So ETMS wins in that category. But I'll pay to study, because if I can save one life and we figure out that psychedelics may help, then maybe that's the option. I didn't create it. I'm just trying to solve the problem. You know what I mean? So we're gonna try to fund that this year, and then we're actually gonna change the ETMS program just slightly, because I feel like I messed up. Veterans can go, first responders can go, but Doug, like, when does a cop actually admit that they're needing help or that they can use help?
Right about this far away from this far from the left of bang or the right of bang.
So
when it's already in a shit place.
Like, so retirees of both the fire service and law enforcement is a category of people that I was like, I totally missed. So we're going to include them in the program and make them eligible. And you watch our uptick with ETMS will go through the roof, because number one, they got the time. Number two, they're admitting to themselves, now that they're by themselves and they're retired, they're in their house and they're like, number one, what's my purpose? Oh, why am I thinking these things? Man, I need help, right? And so,
bro,
that's the idea.
Let me tell you, I was contacted. Actually, Dr. Chris Free, after we did our thing on operator syndrome, he connected me with Dr. Deborah Beidel at UCF. She's in charge of UCF's restores, Blue Line Rescue, Red Line Rescue, Gold Line Rescue. It's their outreach for first responders out of UCF. And they have gotten a grant funded to reach out to retirees to do a peer support training for first responder retirees. We're getting the questions together. We're doing the scope of work and all that stuff. And I'm on the focus group for that.
That's great.
And I think it's amazing. And it never occurred to me that I went through ETMS as a veteran and not as a first responder.
That's
I
the truth.
completely missed that.
Yeah.
And now there are lots of dual-hatted responders out there who did serve also in the military, but it's getting more and more rare nowadays. So I think that's fantastic to be able to reach out to retirees, because as the UCF restores, and with what you just said, and I will attest to this, man, I was darker in the months after I retired than I was at my worst when I was working.
What's
And
funny is like,
it was bad.
it's
It
bad,
got
right?
really bad, dude.
But you figured out how to mask it, because there's a level of, oh, I'm here with my bros and we're doing the job, and we get lost in the job, and then I get to come back and be accountable, and even if it's a fake tough guy thing, we're there, right? And it props you up. But when your left guy on your left and your right's gone, and you're like, where is everyone?
Well,
And then
it's movement and purpose too. Once I retired, I mean, dude, we can go down rabbit holes on this one, but when people retire, however they retire, however they leave the profession, the boys and girls are still doing the job. You're not doing the job anymore. And if it's something that you over-invested in or over-identified with, and I've said this a lot, I was this thing or these things for 31 years, and I wake up one day and I'm not this thing anymore. What am I now? So now I have to do all the existential stuff of, who was Doug supposed to be when I made that decision at 19 to go to basic training? Who was I supposed to be at 50? Who was I supposed to be at 23? Where did I go wrong? Is the guy that I was when I was working and serving, is that really me, or was that a mask? Or is this a mask now? I mean, dude, all of the things,
yeah,
and you don't have that purpose to drive anymore, like you. What's my reason to get out of bed today? What's my reason to put on my clothes? So to figure out all that stuff, it's a dark place, and then it becomes quiet, and in that quiet, and in that not doing, all of those things start to creep up. And if you don't deal with those things as they're coming in, you have to deal with them at some point. And I was fortunate after I retired, because I had a lot of tools. I had done quite a bit of work, but not all the work that I've obviously have done in the last 6 months. But I was stable, but it got dark, bro. And there's folks out there that try to gut it out all the way into the very, very end. And then when they retire, they're like, I've got problems, and there's nobody to talk to. So I think being able to open that up for retirees you're going to see quite a bit of, you're going to see an increase. I've talked to deputies that have called me to ask me about this after hearing the podcast and the stuff that I was posting. They're getting their EEGs done. They're on the schedule for the next couple of weeks to get in there. I mean, it's good. They're like taking lunch break to go. I'm like, bro, it's 15 minutes.
And the best part, legitimately, those people will stay early or come early and stay late. That's the
Yeah, they do.
It's funny because the guys who run it are like, we've never had someone so involved. I'm like, hey, I told you. You know what I mean? Like, you're here to touch Florida. We're gonna make sure this works. You understand that? And so I'm glad to hear that. I cannot explain to you how happy I am to hear that people listen to you and they win, because it's a really big deal. It's a big deal to me to make sure it works. But something you said is pretty important. And I think if we think about this, when people thank me for my service, they're thanking a veteran. I last served in 2001. You understand me? That is over 20 plus years ago. And I still get it. Does a cop and a firefighter get that same respect? And I would contend to you that the majority of people love and respect their cops. I'm not questioning that. But if we were to title, I'm a veteran, you're a veteran cop, do we see it the same way? And I have no one argue with me that they do, right? And go ahead.
I literally have pages of legislation that I started writing for you last summer.
Well,
I haven't handed to you.
I haven't seen them yet, so I'm waiting.
I know, and it's my own fault, and it speaks directly to this. I'm not saying that Florida needs to establish a VA for retired first responder, but there may be something to look into.
Listen, we're having those discussions.
I mean, dude, I could go on to this all day long.
If you ask me, I believe that there is, beyond an equivalency, cops and firefighters are deployed every day. a soldier gets sent on a typical lifespan. We aren't at a 20-year war. On a typical lifespan, if we're a peacetime army and there's like 3 actions in 20 years, that's pretty badass. And everyone's hoping they're part of that action. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because they don't want to get left out. And we say, thank you for your service. Peacetime people, we say, thank you for your service. If I today, 20 plus years later, I say, man, my back hurts because I got 240 jumps and I've slammed myself into the ground like there's no tomorrow, they'll be like, you know what? We owe you. Let's fix that back. And then we're going to give you a little payment for disability. And then we're going to take care of it for the rest of your life. But you know what we tell a cop? Thank you for your service, bro. And we broke your back with a gun belt that sucks. We got in and out of a car that sucks, right? Hump a zone for 30 years and watch that human turn from a young, vibrant person to someone that's beat down and wrinkled that looks 20 years older than they are. And then now that we've actually identified that PTS is not a syndrome, but really a fractionalization, a breaking of the neural pathway, we've broken you and injured you, but we said, thank you for your service, and we move on, right? So it's not like when you're a retired cop, you walk around and everyone's like, oh my God, you're a veteran, but it should be, right? So part of my mission, and I think I'm building this plane, just to be honest with you, as we fly it, right, is to create first responders and put them under Florida law into a category of its own. Meaning you have government employees and then you have first responders.
Two high risk. Yeah.
2 different buckets. But I don't want to call them high risk. I want to call them first responders, right? And these people are the ones, these are our warriors. Every society has them. We laud the people that fight externally. How about we laud the people that fight internally, right? And we have two different categories. So, but we have to begin a simple psychology with talking about them differently and categorizing them differently. And it's going to take a long time. I'm just telling you, what we're talking is cultures change. We're not talking about like dynamics of, oh, Danny passed a law and suddenly we see him differently. This is culturally. We need people echoing this sentimentality because they don't see it that way. They simply don't, right? And the reason that we have cops and firefighters taking their lives on a regular basis is because they've been injured in a way that is hard to process and hard to relate for someone who sees that cop roll up.
Because you can't see it.
I know, but brother, think about this. When I deploy, I'm gone for 6 months. I come back, there's roses, there's like a yellow ribbon around the tree. Welcome home, Danny. But my neighbor who's a cop, he deployed today. He could not come home tonight. You understand that? Because he got into a violent action equivalent to what I could have done as a soldier when I was in the battle. Does that make sense? Right? So people go, when I explain it that way, they're like, I never thought of it that way. Yeah, but Jenny's going to be at our birthday party. I know Jenny the cop, right? But she deployed today in the car that you provided her in your county, and she went to defend you on the front line of what the danger is in your county. She gets the same honor and respect of categorization as I do. She might get more because she deployed more than I did. Like, who deploys at that level? Delta, Rangers, special units that are always out there. Like, SOCOM is never not at war, right? So, but as a regular old infantry guy, like, remember when Somalia happened? Everyone was like, man, 10th Mountain, man. They were there. They got to fight. And it was only like 1 battalion of 10th Mountain that was QRF. And then they were super lucky is the wrong word, but they got their combat infantryman badges and we were all jealous. You know what I mean? We were all jealous. They're walking around like gods, you know? Cops deploy every day. And this is what like, whenever I talk to police academies, I'm like, y'all ain't in shape. Y'all should go get in shape. You deploy every single day. You understand that? Yep. Like, the fight of your life may come today. You understand that? Today when we're done talking here.
Yeah, if you can't make it up a flight of stairs to help me when I'm done with the bad guy, you and I are going to have some serious problems.
Serious problem. Listen,
you're probably going to get hurt.
When it comes to police,
I said that to an academy class.
When it comes to police fitness, I know I offend a lot of people, but
only the people that can't do it.
It's the reality of the life you've chosen. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I applaud you because there's such a small subset of people that are even willing to stand up, right? So I'm trying to make sure that I don't discourage those people from self-revealing, right? But there is a process inside, as remember, they're deploying from their house every single day. And just like me, right, when I got a little bit fat and I'm eating a little bit too much food, like they have the same stressors I do, times 50 though. And it's harder. I got it, but that's a decision they have to make every day. We have to figure out how to do this, and we're doing it slowly by slowly. Can I tell you what like this year? Do you have a question? I'm sorry, I don't want to stop your flow.
I wanted to mention something, and I've said this 100 times before. There's a cross reference between military and first responders, because first responders are like, well, I didn't go to combat, I didn't deploy for the war, but but the military will say, but while I was there was nobody taking care of my family but you. You do this every day. When you redeploy, you have a week of here or there. You've got out briefs. You get this, you get that. I worked in District 3 and I lived in District 3. My district was actually on my running route. I lived less than a 5-minute drive from my district office. So when I log off, I've got less than 5 minutes to switch off everything from the day.
Exactly.
To how am I going to show up for my kids? How am I going to show up for my wife? What are they going to get when I walk in the door? And they never knew what they were going to get when I walked in the door. The grocery store that I went to at least once a week, I got in a shootout in 2007 and we moved from that house in 18. So at least once a week for 11 years, I drove past the streets that I got in a shootout on. Every time I went to go get a gallon of milk, I was reminded of that shootout. So, but see, the thing is, I don't realize that when I'm in the moment. And I didn't realize it then. And it's only now that I've gotten distance and sort of talking about this stuff that I realize those things. But we don't realize the impact that those things have, because they're micro traumas that add up over time. But, and I know that you would answer the question the same way if asked if I would do this all over again. Despite my story, despite everything and all of it, I valued my career. I valued my time going for a county sheriff's office. I loved it until I didn't. And I was damn good at what I did, and I enjoyed it. I would do it all over again tomorrow, my body willing, but from a different standpoint of taking care of myself. Now knowing what I know.
Right.
Having the information now, I think it's very important. And I think you're probably getting ready to lead into this, but kids in the academies, they need to understand, in the fire academy, the fire service, dispatchers, EMS, paramedics, everybody should be front loaded with this information. Hey, these are the physiological and the neurological changes that are going to happen over the course of your service. Either toxic exposure, cancers, these physiological things, these neurological things, not being able to sleep. All of the things that you came here with are going to be magnified because of this life of service. Understand that these are things that cannot be compelled. These are going to happen. This is what it looks like. And this is how you mitigate that and stay optimized to survive a 20 or 30-year career. Here are the tools. Here are the answers. You basically, you're given the answers before you take the test.
That's right.
You're setting people up for success. I don't know why that's not happening. And I love the idea of taking care of them after we retire, because we go on a fixed income and now we're paying, $1,400 a month to insure a family of 4 with health insurance.
I'm working on it.
Well, I think it's a pretty good deal, $1,400 a month for full coverage, and it's good insurance. I don't know any better. But there are things that happened because of my service that wouldn't have happened if I had a desk job or if I didn't serve. And I'm not saying, I need to be very, very clear. Whether there was a pension or not, I started off doing this job as a reserve for free. I had no idea when I was going to get hired or if I would even get hired. I did it for free because I wanted to serve. I would do it all over again, knowing the cost and knowing the price that I paid. I would do it all over again tomorrow. Again, physical body willing. And I'm not saying that I'm owed shit. I'm not. Did this. I know the price. But I think we can do a little bit better.
Absolutely.
If I got hit by a drunk driver, got a buddy of mine, very good friend of mine, talked about him in the book, and I have lunch with him at least once a month. His back is so jacked up and has been jacked up, his spine's fused. went off the road when he was a canine deputy, rolled down the embankment and all that stuff. His dog was sitting on the side of the road, still hadn't found his, keys to his house. And this is like 20 years ago. His back is still messed up, has been messed up. I don't know who's paying for that other than the insurance that he pays for now as a retiree.
You're just making my point, right?
No, I know. And anybody who's been there who has a bad back because they've carried around a 20-pound gun belt for 20 years, and nobody's going to argue with you. Nobody's going to argue with you.
No. So just to help highlight your point, in my first responder package this year, we're mandating a minimum 4-hour course in the police and in the fire academy, which I'm not calling mental health, I'm calling resiliency. Part of it is mental health. Part of it is environmental factors like the chemicals and like health. Like we've got studies that just the overpressure or the lead exposure of shooting the guns that we shoot on a regular basis, that adds up. That lead toxicity adds up and will affect you. It affects your sleep. It affects your hormones. And you need to understand that. Like if we see you as an athlete, you may not treat yourself like an athlete, but we see you that the body is part of the tools. Your gun isn't the only tool. You are the tool, right? So your mind, your body, we talk about sleep, right? In that 4-hour course.
That's the equalizer right there,
right?
buddy.
We talk about sleep because we know sleep disturbance is such a big deal. And then we talk about family and support as well, right? So the 4-hour course, again, born from lessons learned at SOCOM, they had an entire curriculum, and now we're just going to mandate it. And my goal is this is a long process. This is a big boat. It takes a long time to get the boat to change. So I'm going to teach kids coming in, right? So then to them, it's nothing to talk about. I don't feel right. I need a break. Not getting sleep. That shooting was horrific. That accident. I need to disconnect. And then I'm beginning to get chiefs and sheriffs that believe it and understand it, right? But eventually it'll be normalized from the bottom and I pinch it in the top. And then we have at least we begin the cultural change that, Doug, I got fucked up last night, man. I saw this baby and I can't get it. I need to talk about it. I need to process it. Again, when you talk about the deployments, like how many times, like I see Hillsborough County through dead bodies. Okay. Like I like this corner, I saw this corner, this kid got killed here. This corner, I went to this shooting, and it's not like I didn't see it. I saw it all. You understand that? Like I saw it all. And so like once the curtain was like pulled back, I was like, Jesus Christ, I live in the freaking danger zone. And the thing is, now that I'm a civilian that doesn't go behind that yellow line much anymore, I'm like, I love being dumb. You understand that? I love being immune from it all because once I was out of it, it was getting to be a bit much. I'm not going to lie. I was becoming a jerk. I was just becoming a jerk. I was standing over the dead body of a veteran who just committed suicide, who drove his bike into oncoming traffic. I'm talking to the traffic homicide corporal, and he literally said, hey, watch out, the guy's about to leak on you. And I was like, God dang it. And we scoot over and we get back to smoking and joking. Me. That's how I treated this dude who just took his own life, right? And like with the indignity of not caring. You understand that? So that was me with so little time on the job. All right. I was like, all right. So as we talk about the categorization, right? And we talk about it's real, I believe that the max someone should be a cop or a firefighter that we require is 20 years. Give me 20 good years, okay? I will give you a pension. I will give you health care. And I tap on the door as you jump. Thank you for your service, okay? Because they're like, when I moved to Tampa Police and I saw people retiring 20, 22 years, I was like, you're retiring? They look like kids. They were 40, 45. My 45-year-olds at the sheriff's office looked beat to hell because they still had another 10 years, right? They didn't look the same. You know what I mean? It should be thank you for your service and move on. So, for example, little things, we're creating in my bill the Florida Medal of Valor. All right, it is a medal that's awarded by the governor, and the rule that I'm writing says it can only be given at the governor's mansion or at the state house or a building of level equivalency, because this is not something that you just do at roll call. This is like the Florida Medal of Honor. You do something because I want the level exposure of these heroic acts to be recognized on a statewide level, right? Like the Congressional Medal of Honor. We are Florida. We are our own nation state. We will recognize and honor our people as such. Then we're also going to do the Florida Red Heart and Blue Heart, like the Purple Heart, right? We're going to, if you get injured in the line of duty, the state of Florida will issue you are authorized to wear this ribbon and badge. And it is just a declaration that this human has given a piece of themselves to us. You understand? But there's so much more work to do. Like what you were talking about, I just didn't have the bandwidth to pass it this year, but I have this idea that we create a fund that a deputy or a police officer pays into at the beginning, and it might be like 0.5%. And then as they go along and they go to retire, they've bought into the state insurance system for life, right? And so they get to pay their monthly fee instead of the $1,400 you're talking about becomes the state insurance rate. I pay $280 a month and the state pays the other side, right? As an employee, a benefit of being this special category, right, is you get to buy in to the system that way, right? So the last big thing, I think that one of the things we need to do is if you get injured in the line of duty, we need to prove to you, and you can no longer be a cop or a firefighter because of that injury. We need to prove to you in our actions, not just our words, that your sacrifice was worthy of what you did for us, right? So right now, for example, you get injured in the line of duty, you go into this like black hole, right? Like think about when you get injured on post, when you're a military guy, like you're still around the boys, like you're injured, but you know, no one's taking your badge away. You're not on this light duty. You're not like this like broke guy. I mean, you're broke guy, and we're still going to make fun of you. You're, you don't go into this black hole by yourself. And then when you've reached your maximum medical improvement, you have a choice to make, right? Like right now, some agencies say, if you don't get done by this arbitrary time, we kick you out.
Yeah.
I'm like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. If you've given yourself to us, we as a society owe it to you to allow you the time necessary to heal, because you didn't get shot for your own good, or you didn't fall through the roof as a firefighter because you wanted to be there for fun, right? Now, I understand that we're paying you, and I understand that's part of the risk, but we owe it to you, right, to make sure that you get better. And then if you can't get better, right, because, I don't know, you lost a thumb, I'm sorry, you can't hold a gun anymore. Like that was part of the risk, right? But we're not going to kick you to the curb. What we should say is, let's give you a high percentage of what your top couple years of salary were. We're going to pay for your insurance related to the injury, right? And which could mean this too, right? And then we send you on your way as a hero, and you feel that Florida is taking care of you for your sacrifice. That doesn't happen right now.
No.
And I'm positive that if there's an elected sheriff listening to my round, they'll be like, "Oh, that's a little harsh, Danny." And I'm like, well, the reality of the matter is, if you don't understand that there's a psychological disconnect going for the person that's been injured when you just out-process and put them back in the world, then we're missing the boat. I hope this is a wake-up call, right? Like,
dude, if you don't realize that as an elected sheriff or the chief of police or the chief of fire, did you ever work in the profession before you ascended to that rank? 1, and 2, shame on you for not knowing that. Dude, the studies are there. Talk to a retiree. I'll tell you how my last day was, and it was 25 years of service. Okay, here's a credential case. By the way, give me the one that you have, and I'll bring you another one. I was handed a used credential case, bro, in worse condition than the one that I just turned in.
Jesus.
Thank you for your 25 years. Now go back to your district this afternoon and eat the cake that your wife paid for.
Yeah, and then I also
25 years, bro.
I think that's part of.
Dude, that's every story.
I know.
That's not rare.
No.
That's the everyday.
And that's just not where you were. It's just not where
No. It's, dude, it's everywhere. The story is the same story, just being told with a different voice.
That's it.
You know, you listen to, the first time I heard it was Nick Koumalatzos. He wrote a book called Excommunicated Warrior. He was an old Marine Raider. And he talked about the day he walked out of the command, the door clicked behind him. An entire universe that he had full access to moments before when that door clicked, he no longer belonged. When I left benefits, the lady walked me to my door and said, "You can wait in the lobby." And I walked by myself out the lobby, and I stood in front of that building with a retired yellow card on my belt, holding a book bag with 25 years of legacy in it. That's what I was able to carry with me, waiting for a zone car to come pick me up and bring me home. That's how everyone's story ends.
Yeah.
Every one of them. That's the last day. It's the last day.
Real. So imagine,
but it's everywhere. It's everywhere. And that's the
imagine
problem.
your last day though, when you're injured because you've been trying to recover, you've been trying to get better, you've been trying to get back to the badge, and it doesn't go well, right? You've been isolated.
Mine was natural progression. I'd served 25 years. It was my decision to retire. So, yeah, I've only got that to contend with. Somebody who has what they wanted their, at 5 years old, what do you want to be? I want to be a cop. I want to be a firefighter. I want to do this. When it comes at somebody else's decision, when it wasn't a natural progression where you reached retirement age because of an injury or something like that, dude, I don't even know what that's like. I can only imagine, having heard stories from other people who've experienced that. That's hard, bro. Because you're not ready.
That's right.
You're not done. You were cheated. And man, that's a hard thing. I love that people are recognized, that you've recognized this, and that something's being done about this.
It'll take a while.
I'm sorry, I got a little ranty there, but
no, it'll take a while. I think most people that I serve with, they will tell you they love cops, and I believe it. I don't know that they understand how that the expression of how they love cops may not be as helpful or firefighters as they want it to be, right? And that is what I think I'm trying to fix. I'm trying to fix how we perceive the people that put it on the line, right? And everyone's like, "Oh, I love cops," and I believe it. They're being honest, right? But what I'm saying is, you love cops, then let's look at cops for what they are. They're the deploying person every single day, and that is different than you and me. That is different than, like, you don't get the same retirement that the secretary at the Florida State Capitol gets. You don't get the same treatment, right? Like, I will treat you special, right? I do that. Like, we treat soldiers special, I will treat you special. It's not discrimination. It's not anything wrong. It is a deserved and earned because you chose to give up a lot for your family and as for your society. I mean, and our society benefits because of that, right? And I just think we just need to start having the conversations around this so that culturally we start looking at cops and firefighters differently. And then it's not a far burden. Once you see the categorization that I want, then when I come and tell you, don't you think that that person earned that insurance benefit? Oh, yeah. Oh, of course. Don't you think that person should probably have good funding for cars and radios, right? Right. Oh, yeah. Right. And so what ends up happening is you'll get people who look at categories like firefighters and cops as line items in running cities and counties. They're just a number, but you cannot look at that like just a number. Mm-hmm. And the politician gets this balance and goes, "But Danny, I really need parks. Parks make people happy, and those are voters. You know what makes people really unhappy? Dying.
Not getting robbed.
Yeah. You know what makes people really unhappy? Not feeling safe. And this isn't a black thing, a white thing, a Hispanic thing, or nothing. Safety is safety. One of the first things I remember telling the sheriff whenever, because, he's a Republican, we're a purple district. I said, "Sir, stop. You are the sheriff of all people. When people call 911, they don't go, 'Send me the Republican.' They say, 'Send me the sheriff,' right? And so if you understand that public safety is the marker, it's the basis from which we build successful societies, then you can build on that, right? But we've just taken it for granted too much. In my own county, Hillsborough County, there are jurisdictions that treat their firefighters and cops not as great as they should, but their politicians believe they are a priority to them. They will tell their voters, I love my cops and firefighters, while not paying them enough, while not equipping them right, while not supporting them when the chips are down. And when the politics are bad, they're like, I don't know. I don't know what that guy did. Do you know what a real leader says? Hey, our fire department. Hey, our police department. Did that guy do something wrong? If he did something wrong, we'll find out, but we still stand with it. Let's go figure out what happened and we'll get back to you. Instead, we have people go, well, let's see what they've done, and then we'll give it. But I hope to God they've done something right, because if not, then we're going to hold them accountable. That's the wrong attitude.
It's deplorable.
And how does a warrior see that? How does a warrior see that? The warrior says, hey man, I'm here to do my job. You hired me to do the job. I don't need a lot of credit. But what I really do need is when I pull this gun out because you told me to do that and I actually use it, I need to know that you're behind me. I'll take the bad if I get it wrong. But if I do my job and I do it right and I still get criticized, where do I win? Right? And then they wonder why I'm having a hard time filling slots. You see what I'm saying? Then they wonder why we're having a hard time filling. Doug, all over the state of Florida, we can't fill specialty teams. You know that? Like, weren't you on the, you're a bomb guy, right? Like at the sheriff's office? Yeah. And dogs too, right?
I was a canine sergeant. I didn't have a dog because I had 6 other units.
But you understand what I'm about to say, right? When I was at the sheriff's office, we could not get people to regularly show up to tryouts. A SWAT tryout historically would have like 35 dudes, right? And we would have 6, right? And you're like, and that sucks for those 6 because now the whole SWAT team can focus on you, right? So, and at the dive team would have one guy, right? The bomb team even more, right? Because we're deploying them more. They got to be at all these things all the time, mandatory overtime. And so eventually we have a group of people that are like, man, I don't want any of that. I'm going to come in and do my job. This is not worth it, right? I wanted to do good. Now I'm getting criticized for doing good, you know what I mean? Or doing my job. And it's rough. It's really, really rough. And we're all circling back to leadership. It begins with the environment that is provided with the supportive or non-supportive attitude of their leadership. If you have a mayor or a city council who you don't think is behind you, right? Why are you in? Why would you be in? Why would I go there? They hate me there. You know what I mean? So politicians don't realize how much they affect the downstream, right? And the downstream is real. Like, because to guys like us, like people that operate on duty, honor, and code, we operate by the code, but there is a faith-based premise there that says, I am doing this and I will do the dark stuff that you need, but it's because you've got my back. When you don't have my back, this fades away. You see what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to be here, and we lose warriors.
This was actually the subject of my of the newsletter I launched today. And
Really?
I spoke about that. And I spoke about something that came to my attention just last week. It's called sanctuary trauma. It is being traumatized by a person or an organization who you trusted to be there for you, to protect you, and they didn't. And it's a real thing, man. It is a real thing. And
that's a good way to put it.
You know, I think that people in leadership positions, and I'm not going to harp on this too long, but people in leadership positions, oh my God, we can talk about character, we can talk about moral courage, we can talk about just the basic attributes that make a person a moral and ethical leader. A lot of them don't have that. And I know we've already said that people that do have that makes it glaring to those who lack those things. So they'll never stand in the same room with you because people will see the difference side by side. This one is different than that one. Oh, yeah. And it becomes a threat to them. But you know, when you don't take care of your personnel or you make a snap judgment before all the facts are available, just because you want to run for the high grass, that's not moral courage. You know, you feed your people to the wolves, or you make an arbitrary decision that's going to impact them, and just think that, okay, this is done. Like sheriff's offices in the state, we're not a union shop. We don't have a union. So decisions of reassignment can happen because, well, you're a deputy. This is not a demotion, so we're going to assign you to midnights in some other part of the county. So your commute from 15 minutes is an hour and a half to get down to Fort Lonesome because that's where you're going to work for the next however long we decide.
That's right.
And those things happen.
They do.
Everywhere, in every agency. I mean, there's 18,000 law enforcement agencies in the country. It happens everywhere. Don't care how big your department is, it's going to happen.
And it happens with union places too, by the way.
Yeah, but you have a little bit more protection.
Yeah.
So you have recourse. You have recourse.
I'm the union attorney for the Tampa Police Department. And so you're totally right. There is some recourse, but you would think I will never, if my child asks me to be a cop, I'll be like, okay, but you got to go to a place that has a union. And it's not that like the shops here that don't have union aren't great shops. It's that when the politics, right, gets mixed in with the SOP, right?
Yeah.
That's a problem. And,
well,
and the official lamb is the person in the middle, which is the deputy.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that. And I will say this, full disclosure, the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office is the best at what they do.
100%. I love those.
Without a doubt, I will never say anything against that. I was very proud of the organization. It's the only place I applied for, the only place I was going to work for. And I love it. I love the men and women there. I love what they do, the job they do, what they stand for, 100%. And I proudly wear that brand. There are things that could be done better on an individual level.
Every day.
You know, and I agree, even in my own self, okay?
Yeah.
But when a leader, and I can go back 25 years with this, I can go back 3 weeks with these examples. You know, you make a decision, I'm going to send you to the south part of the county, or I'm going to take you away from the specialty position that you've been in because you did something I didn't like, and I need to act or overreact because somebody's going to think poorly of a decision that I made or did not make. So from now on, you report to this person, that's where you work. And then we're going to do an inquiry to see if this was justified, but you're not going to get that position back. Bro, people that become first responders, become soldiers, Marines, airmen, sailors, they do it because they believe in what they're doing. This is their purpose, their mission, their service. They identify with what it is they are doing. It becomes part of who they are. It's how they live their life. If I had a candy wrapper, I'm going to wait till I get to the gas station or home for a garbage can. I'm not going to throw it out the window because it's the wrong thing to do. And it's a candy wrapper. But that's how we live our lives. We do the right things because it's the right thing to do. So living your life in that way and by a code, if someone that you trust to protect you or to understand that code and how deeply rooted that is within you, any slight to that, any attack on that, or any perceived injustice without due cause or due process is causing harm to that person. There's no way around it.
Absolutely.
You are going to cause harm. Absolutely. Now, if you've done it and you're justified in the decision to reassign or demote or fire or whatever the case is, then that's the other person's misunderstanding. That's for them to grapple with. But if it's been done without due process or due cause or arbitrarily, without considering that person's feelings or what the impact to them is going to be, then you have intentionally caused harm. Not knowing that, shame on you. Doing it anyway, shame on you.
You know,
so there's a lot of things that can be done to protect and dispatchers, EMS, paramedics, everybody that's a first responder and lives in that world, man. They put a lot on the line. And I agree with you. They are special people because they've decided to serve in that capacity.
Brother, we thrive under merit. We are the kind of people.
We should. You and I do.
No. The people that are attracted to the jobs that we do, they were told, if you do this good job, this is the attaboy you get. This is how you rate your success. These are the tasks, conditions, and standards, right? We promote, we think. We promote, we operate, we work off of, do I have the merit? Have I done the job? Have I earned it, right? Let my work speak. We started this way. Let my work speak for myself, right?
Yes, but not always everybody operates that way.
Brother, that's exactly right. So what happens is when you pervert a system with promoting off of anything but the merit, right? You destroy the foundations of the thing you think you love, right? Yeah. So it's so bad now. It's so bad now with all of these outside influences, once again, in the cop world that should be excluded from the cop and fire world and the soldier world, that they've crept in. What's your color? What's your gender? What's your relationship with so-and-so? None of that matters. In this world, none of that matters. I do not ever remember giving a damn if I'm Hispanic, if that was a white guy, if that was a black guy. I said, send me that green guy with the same skills that I have, and let's go take down the door. You understand that? That's all that mattered, right? So in cop world, what I have observed from my very unique vantage point is that we're not promoting and preserving that. What we're doing is, based on the political influences that come in, we have gotten so far away from our core function, right, that we promote people that shouldn't be there. Those people are not prepared to lead, and their weakness in lack of preparation bleeds down. So who do they promote? People like them. And then it begins to infect the whole thing.
You start getting dull copies of dull copies.
Exactly. And so then what ends up happening? We are in the police and fire world, the daily deploying force. And then all of a sudden you're asking for this high level of proficiency and leadership, and you wonder why it's not there. You're like, that can't be right. Well, you promoted people that shouldn't have been there based on things that you shouldn't have promoted them on, right? Are they a great firefighter? How do they pull that hose? How do they manage the truck's pressure? How do they attack the fire?
Will people follow them into a burning building? Will they trust that when I go into this burning building, that person is going to be right behind me?
That is beyond right. So I'm telling you, in my first responder package this year, I'm not sure that it'll actually be successful, but I want the shot across the bow. I'm just telling you that right now. I'll fight for it all the way. And it says, if you promote on anything other than qualification and merit, you have created a civil cause of action that not only can the individual or their family member sue you for, once they win, they can get triple damages. You must pay them at the rate they would have been promoted at. And even if there's not a job, so let's say like there was a lieutenant position that you went for, and they picked the number 5 person because they had other qualifying features based on race, color, creed. Guess what happens? You get paid as a lieutenant, and then the first available slot, you must get it, right? So I recognize that that is very harsh, but I don't know any other way to tell people that what they're doing is wrong and we need to stop. It's not because of anything other than lives at risk. You understand that, right?
That's really
lives
it, dude.
At risk.
Yeah. What we do is unforgiving. It's unforgiving. You can't pull back a bullet. You can't. You know, I used to tell the kids when I would teach in the academy, you need to pay attention to what's written in these things, because cops and firefighters, we learn shit the hard way. The lessons in these books, that's not case law. Yeah, that's the point that I made. I said, you know, outside of case law, there are things that were done right and could have been better, and that's why we have case law. But where to stand when you go knocking on a door? Somebody died to bring you that lesson.
That's right.
Standing behind the B pillar and not near the window. That's a lesson that was learned the hard way. Those lessons are written in blood.
Huffs in the back.
Exactly. I mean, dude, there are so many things that have been learned by people that learned it the hard way.
That's right.
And, you know, what we do is unforgiving. So if you have a leader that's in a position who doesn't understand that or hasn't done that, who doesn't have that lived experience. Yeah, dude, we can make this a 6-hour podcast, but I'm sure Heather is waiting to get flowers and go to dinner.
Is. We're going to go on the boat today after we're done.
Oh, very nice. Well, you know what, brother, I always love talking to you. I always have. I'm a little upset that I get to see your face, but I don't get a hug. But that's okay. I'll
get you one. I'll break your back.
Give me 2 hugs next time I see you, or just one really long one. Man, you know what? With your first responder package, and I shouldn't say this because it sounds self-serving, but I want to say it with your permission. Can I talk about the gift that you've given me and that you're giving to the Florida House?
Yes.
I really want to say this because this is the commitment. I'm going to brag on my friend Danny Alvarez here for a minute. Last September, when we had the hurricanes through Florida, everybody else was hunkered down and making sure their families were okay. This dude who is sharing the screen with me right now was out in his dungarees and his boots and all that other stuff, wearing life jackets, taking food and water to people that were inaccessible with anybody else. You were with the Special Missions Unit, the Florida Guard, yes?
Yes, sir.
Out with those guys on boats, in
Great guys.
helicopters. You and Jay Collins and others were out there. Not others. You and Jay Collins were the only ones that I saw out there where there were no power, mosquitoes, all of it, surveying the damage, bringing stuff to the people all around the state. You have served in capacities. If there's a cop's funeral or a firefighter funeral, you're there front and center. Not because you're there for a photo op. You're there because you're Danny, and that's what Danny does. Anybody, like I said at the beginning of this, who's met you for more than a minute knows that this is who you are, your character, and I've never seen anything that would make me believe otherwise. And I'm a critical person, and I'm a hard person to impress, but brother, I've got the utmost respect for you, and I am just, I'm honored to call you a friend, and I
Thank you,
want to talk about this gift that you've given, the belief in me that there's a tradition for the representatives to buy a gift for the other representatives from something that came from their districts. Now, you could have chosen oranges, you could have chosen steaks, strawberries, sand, anything. You know, you could have chosen anything from your district in Hillsborough County, but after reading Hiding in Plain Sight, my book, you decided that that was going to be the gift that you gave to the house. And just thank you. Thank you for that, for telling the stories of first responders. And again, my story is unique to me because it's told in my voice, but it's not unique to the people who serve. It is the story that we all live. It's a life of service. And I think that you bringing that message, being on James's podcast, Behind the Shield, pushing 24/72, everything that you're doing speaks to your character and that you're actually doing the work that you say that you're going to do. So, man, thank you. Thank you for being Danny and just being the dude that you are. I think your district is lucky to have you. The state is lucky to have you. And I don't know, dude. You're one of the best people I know. So just thank you for being here with us today. And do you have any parting words for us, man?
Yeah. First of all, thank you. I think your story, your process of becoming a civilian is one that our brotherhood goes through every day. Today, someone retired, right? Today, there's a veteran that's and a cop and a firefighter somewhere along the line of trying to figure out who they are, what they are. My message to them is that inside you, you have everything you need to push forward in the next chapter of your life. You don't need Danny Alvarez to tell you you're awesome. You are awesome. You have already given to others more in 1 year than some people give in a lifetime of service. But you've retired, or even if you've left early after a couple of years, because that's becoming the norm also. Mm-hmm. Thank you for your service. Now, if you think you're done, you're wrong, right? Inside everyone, there is something. Go be an incredible employee if that's what you want. Go start your business. Go invest in your family. All of the great traits that made you an incredible servant, right? With that kind of heart and will and skill, we need you in this society to influence others because we are the dying breed, right? And we are the ones that are charged by honor, duty, and code and natural ability to lead it back. And we need you now more than ever. If you're a cop, firefighter, or veteran hearing me now, understand, right, that your service may be done in chapter, but not in book wrote, right? The rest of your story is yet to be written, and the impact you're ready to make, it doesn't need to be a state representative if that's not what it can be the guy who takes care of his neighborhood HOA. It could be the person that is an incredible leader at church. But your impact in the community is not over. I appreciate you. I love you all entirely with everything I am. And I really thank you for your service and thank you for doing what y'all have done. Doug, you too, bro. You know I love you.
Well, I'm grateful to you, brother. I love you too. And I appreciate your time, man.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing this.
Thank you. What an incredible conversation with my friend, Representative Danny Alvarez. Danny's a leader who doesn't talk about change, who makes it happen. From his time in the Army to law enforcement, public affairs, natural disaster response, and now the House of Representatives, His entire career has been about service in action. If today's episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Follow Danny on social media and check out his work in the Florida legislature. And if you're looking for a powerful keynote speaker, you know where to find him. If you've got a story to tell, don't keep it to yourself. There are people out there waiting to hear your words. Something in your story might just be the thing that pulls them into the light. The way forward starts here. See you next time.